Chapter 35:12. He won't. You guys don't understand my big brother at all. He thirsts for power more than anyone else, and he's a very ambitious person. As far as I know, he has already mentioned to the patriarch of the Golden Dragon clan, hoping to make him the successor as soon as possible, but the patriarch of the Golden Dragon clan never agreed. Therefore, this battle may be a part of his plan. The little princess of the dragons said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and smiled. If that's the case, then I really underestimated him before. That's why I told you to be careful. To tell you the truth, my big brother isn't as simple as he looks on the surface. He's a very shrewd person. The little princess of the dragons seemed to have thought of something painful, and a cold, murderous intent flashed in her eyes. Okay, I will pay attention in the future. But I heard that there are also many law inheritances in the inner area of the Een Demon Land. But why didn't I see you guys looking for these law inheritances? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. The inheritance in the inner area is regulated. You have to rely on your own ability to break the protective barrier of the land of inheritance. You've stayed in the inner region before. Furthermore, you've obtained an inheritance. Thus, you should know how powerful the defensive spirit formations of the inheritance grounds are. And that's not all. Every member of the dragons only has one chance to enter the inner area, to choose an inheritance in their lifetime. In other words, regardless of whether you choose the inheritance of an strongest law or an ordinary law, you will not have a second chance to choose. And this rule was personally issued by Lord Dragon King. So even the patriarchs of the various clans don't dare to violate it. The little princess of the dragons explained. Is that so? Qin Feiyong nodded in realization and asked. Then what if you guys go to look for an inheritance in private? This is against the clan's rules, and you will be severely punished. The little princess of the dragons said. No wonder he's so cautious. Qin Feiyong muttered. What do you mean? The little princess of the dragons looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Since it's a cooperative relationship, I naturally won't hide things that are beneficial to you. The prince of your White Dragon clan, when he was in the outer area of the Een Demon Land, was ready to accept the supreme inheritance of the law of destruction. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. Really? The little princess of the dragons was surprised. This is what we saw with our own eyes. Also, I snatched the inheritance of the law inheritance from under his nose. Qin Feiyong smiled. Estes. Teet. Qin Feiyong shook his head. At that time, he didn't know that the dragon clan had such a rule. Teet. But he didn't expect the rules of the dragons to be so strict. What's more, he didn't expect the survival and competition of the dragons to be so cruel. Even if it's just a small matter, it can lead to a fatal disaster. Hearing this, the little princess of the dragons smiled bitterly. There's no evidence, and the inheritance was stolen by you. Even if I tell Lord Dragon King, it's useless. All right. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. If there's another chance in the future, I'll be careful. Okay. I suddenly realized that you're quite cute. If only you were one of my dragons. The little princess of the dragons giggled. Cute. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned, shook his head and smiled. Speaking of which, I'm indeed a member of the dragons. After all, I have the power of the purple gold dragon blood. But you're still a human, the little princess of the dragons said. All right. It's my fault. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly. Suddenly, a question crawled up in his mind. He looked at the little princess of the dragons and asked. Can you answer my question? The little princess of the dragons said. As long as it's not about the dragons, I can consider it. Qin Feiyong asked. Why do you dragons hate people with purple gold dragon blood so much? The dragons of the ancient realm were greedy for their purple gold dragon blood, and wanted to deprive them of their bloodline power to make his son. That's why they attacked him and his ancestors. But the dragons of the sky cloud realm were different. The dragons here had never said that they wanted to rob them of their bloodline power. They just hated them. Therefore, the dragons of the ancient realm and the sky cloud realm had different goals and intentions. The little princess of the dragons was silent for a while and sighed. It's not that I hate you, Someone with purple gold dragon blood. But I hate the purple gold divine dragon. Hate the purple gold divine dragon? What do you mean? Could it be that the purple gold divine dragon really exists in this world? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course. Otherwise, where did your purple gold dragon blood come from? However, this secret is a secret of us dragons. I can't tell you. If you really want to know, you can try to defeat Lord Dragon King. Because only Lord Dragon King knows about this matter the best. As for us, even the patriarchs of the various clans only know a little about the situation. The little princess of the dragons said. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. It was actually related to the Dragon King. Most importantly, the Dragon King was the only one who knew the truth of this matter. This was something worth pondering. What kind of secret was hidden in this? The little princess of the dragons suddenly asked. I heard that you are going to the other 3 forbidden areas. Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said with a smile, No, who did you hear it from? It's purely unfounded. If you say no, then there must be. Don't worry, I won't stop you from going to the other 3 forbidden areas. Because even if you enter the 3 forbidden areas and find the people of the 3 forbidden areas, it may not be a good thing for you. The little princess of the dragons giggled. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. Nothing. I just want to tell you that instead of asking others for help, it's better to work hard on your own. That's all I have to say, do as you see fit. After the little princess of the dragons finished speaking, her shadow quickly dissipated. The white-eyed wolf retracted his gaze, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, This little girl, is she hinting at something? How would I know? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The last few words of the little princess of the dragons were a bit inexplicable. The sea lion pondered for a while, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and said, 2 bosses, I personally think that we can't believe everything she said, but we can't not believe it either. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at the sea lion. Think about it. No matter what, she's the little princess of the dragons after all. She must know the situation of the 3 forbidden areas better than us. It's possible that she's just scaring us, but it's also possible that she's hinting at us. In short, when facing the 3 forbidden areas, it's never wrong to be careful. The sea lion said. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, Thank you. The sea lion wasn't happy. If you say thank you again, I'm going to fall out with you. You helped me set up a time formation, and even helped me refine Sea Lion Island. I definitely won't forget this favor. Good. Qin Feiyang nodded again and again. Look, this is what a berserk beast is like. Although there are good and bad berserk beasts, as long as they can become friends, they will be loyal. Also, that crown prince of the dragons, if what the little princess said is true, and this is all part of his plan, then he's just using you guys. This debt must be settled with him. The sea lion snorted coldly. Of course. The white-eyed wolf sneered. All right. Anyway, with my little strength, I can't help you guys much. However, Sea Lion Island will always be your base. If you can't stay outside, then come here to retire. The sea lion bared its teeth. No, look at my memory, I forgot again. Sorry. All right. The word thank you. No one should say it again in the future. Just remember it in your hearts. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's right. The sea lion nodded in satisfaction. Then, you continue to keep it safe for me. Qin Feiyang gave the sea lion a few words of advice before entering the black tortoise world with the white-eyed wolf. Southern Continent. 7-Star City. 2 figures flashed toward the back mountain of the He family. It was He Zhongtian and Blood Dragon Blade. He Zhongtian was still in his divine soul form. Although he went to the Black Tortoise world, it was less than a day. According to the time in the Black Tortoise world, it was only a few hundred years, so it was impossible for him to reconstruct his body so quickly. He looked at the Blood Dragon Blade. When he separated from Qin Feiyang, he was still in good condition. Now that he had returned to the He family, not only was he covered in scars, but he was also broken into several pieces. He Zhongtian looked at the Blood Dragon Blade, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He said in admiration, You're quite ruthless to yourself. That's right. The current state of the blood dragon blade was caused by himself. If I wasn't ruthless, how could the words we discussed in advance be acceptable? Dragons, you're not as stupid as you think. The blood dragon blade snorted. Yes, yes, yes. He Zhongtian nodded and entered the sky above the back mountain. Heading straight for the courtyard below, he began to cry from afar. Lords, please help me. The prince, princess, and their followers who were reconstructing their bodies in the courtyard frowned slightly when they heard He Zhongtian's voice. Then, they got up one after another and flew out of the courtyard. They stood in the sky and looked at He Zhongtian and the blood dragon blade. Why were they in such a sorry state? He Zhongtian landed in front of a group of people and immediately fell to the ground. He cried, Lords, I'm sorry. Not only did I almost kill myself, but I also implicated the blood dragon blade. What happened? The prince of the blood dragon clan looked at the blood dragon blade and asked. Sigh. It's a trap. The blood dragon blade sighed. A trap? The blood dragon prince raised his eyebrows. Yes. The Yin family has been colluding with Qin Feiyang for a long time. This time, the Yin family led us there to snatch the key in He Zhongtian's hands and obtain control of the divine weapon of the sacred hall. The blood dragon blade said. Chapter 35:13. They colluded with Qin Feiyang. Everyone's eyes darkened. The Yin family really didn't know what was good for them. He Qinggang, the head of the He family, died in battle and my body was destroyed. If it weren't for the blood dragon blade, we would have been killed by them. My lords, you must uphold justice for me. I want to exterminate the Yin family, kill Qin Feiyang, and make them pay with their blood. He Zhongtian roared with red eyes. Damn Qin Feiyang. He's really haunting us. The blood dragon prince clenched his hands and looked at the blood dragon blade. Since you fought, why didn't we feel any battle fluctuations? The castle blocked the Star River. The blood dragon blade said. What about Qin Feiyang? He has 2 Dominator divine weapons and the slaughter domain. How could he let you escape? The blood dragon prince frowned. Qin Feiyang didn't show up. The blood dragon blade said. He didn't show up? The blood dragon prince was stunned. Yes. At first, we couldn't figure it out. Later, when we escaped, we found out that Qin Feiyang was helping to move the Yin family members. The blood dragon blade said. Moving the Yin family members? The group of people looked at each other. That's right. Qin Feiyang must have thought that when we found out that the Yin family was colluding with him, we would definitely attack the Yin family. So he moved the Yin family members in advance. Before returning to the He family, we had already investigated. Whether it was the Yin family's ancestral land or other places, we couldn't find a single member of the Yin family. The blood dragon blade sighed. Bastard. The blood dragon prince was furious. He looked at the other princes and princesses and roared. If we had known this, we would have sent a few more Dominator divine weapons. What's the point of saying this now? Besides, who would have thought that the Yin family would collude with Qin Feiyang? A woman in green sighed. She looked at the old ancestor of the He clan and said with a smile. But this is also good. Right now the southern continent belongs to your He clan. If you work hard for us in the future, your He clan will definitely benefit. Yes. The old ancestor of the He clan nodded respectfully, but he still looked a little disappointed. The lady in green frowned and said, What do you mean by that expression? You don't trust us? No, no, no. I have never doubted your abilities. I was just thinking that the divine ruler's weapon of the divine temple had already been taken away by Yin Zhongtian, and even if our He family were to unify the divine temple and the southern continent, we would not be able to make up for that loss. He Zhongtian said with a disappointed expression. Don't worry, we're still here. Hurry up and heal yourself. We'll deal with him after we've reconstructed our bodies. The green-robed woman waved her hand. All right. Then my He clan will rely on you in the future. He Zhongtian bowed, then got up and left. The blood dragon prince and the others looked at each other and returned to their own courtyards to continue reconstructing their divine souls and bodies. However, the hearts of their followers grew heavier. They had been schemed against by Qin Feiyang again. Was this kid really someone they could deal with? They did not doubt He Zhongtian's words at all. If it was just He Zhongtian, they would definitely investigate it personally. However, if even the Blood Dragon Blade said so, then it must be true. Because, although they did not trust He Zhongtian, the Blood Dragon Blade was definitely not a problem. The Black Tortoise World. Although only a short while had passed in the outside world, decades had passed in the Black Tortoise World. In these decades, the Yun clan had not only settled down in the Middle State, but they had also slowly gotten used to life in the Black Tortoise World. The Devil's Land Tea Garden. Qin Feiyang sat by the tea table and drank tea. The white-eyed wolf pulled Yun Zifeng and placed a wine jar in front of each of them. They went back and forth, constantly clinking cups. Qin Feiyang glanced at Yun Zifeng with an extremely strange expression. Your clan has been in the Black Tortoise World for decades, but you stay in the Devil's Land all day long. It seems like you're relying on me. Qin Dage, don't say that. It's only been a few decades. For cultivators like us, not to mention a few decades, a few thousand years, or even tens of thousands of years, it's all in the blink of an eye. Let's talk about it later. I just want to stay by your side and learn from you. Yun Zifeng chuckled. After getting along with each other, he was no longer as nervous as before when facing Qin Feiyang. Learn. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched, and his face darkened. I think you're just pretending to learn. You're really thinking about the Black Tortoise Divine Brew and the Unparalleled Divine Brew. I say, you're so young. Why don't you learn something better? You're always following the white-eyed wolf around. Little Qinzi, what do you mean by that? Following this big brother means following him around? Do you want me to be like you, holding a teacup and drinking tea every day? Look at you now. What's the difference between you and an old man like Yun Zhongtian? You're not interesting at all. The white-eyed wolf's face was full of disdain. Then he looked at Yun Zifeng and asked, Kid, do you think Big Brother is right? Yes, you must be right. Yun Zifeng nodded. The white-eyed wolf laughed heartily. Kid, you have good taste. Following this big brother, I guarantee you'll live a good life. Come, cheers. Okay, big brother, cheers. Yun Zifeng held the wine cup in his hand, a fawning smile on his face. Qin Feiyang looked at the sky speechless. Yun Zifeng's character were good, and he also valued friendship. Unfortunately, he was still too young to withstand the white-eyed wolf's teasing. Whoosh! Suddenly, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, 3 figures rushed into the Devil's Land like lightning. Qin Feiyang looked up, and a smile appeared on his face. The people who came were Yun Zhongtian, Yun Zhongyue, and Yun Guanghui. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui were already very familiar with the Devil's Land, but Yun Zhongyue had been in the Black Tortoise boundary for a long time, and this was the first time he had entered the Devil's Land. Looking at the medicinal herbs all over the mountains, and the scene of clouds and mist, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. What kind of Devil's Land was this? It was simply a paradise. Brother Qin. Yun Zhongtian cupped his hands and greeted Qin Feiyang from afar. Qin Feiyang got up, a smile on his face, and welcomed the arrival of the 3 people. Not good, my father is here. If he sees me drunk like this again, he will definitely teach me a lesson. At the same time, Yun Zifeng's face changed, and he hurriedly pushed the wine jar and wine cup in front of the white-eyed wolf. What are you afraid of? Big brother will protect you, the white-eyed wolf said. Really? Yun Zifeng asked. The white-eyed wolf said, Of course, now you are my little brother. If he dares to teach you a lesson, I will teach him a lesson. Then forget about it. Father is father after all. How can I do such a disgraceful thing? Yun Zifeng hurriedly waved his hand, and then took back the wine jar and wine cup, and said with a smile, But I still have to thank Big Brother. Here's a toast to you. You have a future. The white-eyed wolf nodded in satisfaction. When Yun Guanghui landed in the tea garden and saw this scene, his face couldn't help but darken. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Did I disturb you? No. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled, looking at the 3 people and said, Please sit. The 3 of them sat beside Qin Feiyang. Yun Zhongyue looked at the tea trees around them, his eyes filled with surprise. This little guy actually planted such a large area of tea trees? Have some tea. Qin Feiyang poured 3 cups of tea, and pushed them in front of the three people. Thank you. Yin Zhongtian smiled, picked up the teacup and smelled it. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Brother Qin, the more I drink your tea, the more I like it. If old senior likes it, you can pick some back later. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Really? Yin Zhongtian's eyes lit up, very tempted. How can I fool you? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Yin Zhongtian laughed, and took a sip of tea. He turned to look at Yin Zifeng and frowned. Brother Qin, has this kid always been like this? What else? I was just teaching him a lesson, but it seems to be useless. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. When Yin Guanghui heard this, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He looked at Yin Zifeng and said angrily, Yin Zifeng, don't go too far. I'm not controlling you now, but that doesn't mean you have the right to indulge. Yin Zifeng was slightly stunned, looking at Yin Guanghui and the other two, asking, Father, old ancestor, Sister Yu, when did you come? Sister Yu? When Qin Feiyang heard this address, he was a little confused. The same was true for the white-eyed wolf. This Yin Zhongyue was Yin Zhongtian's younger sister. According to seniority, she was also an ancestor. So how could he call her sister? At the same time, Yin Guanghui and the other two were also stunned. What the hell? He didn't even know when they came? This unfilial son. Just as the three of them were about to explode, Yin Zifeng quickly waved his hand and said, Just joking, don't take it seriously. When the three of them heard this, they couldn't help but feel angry. Yin Zifeng smiled embarrassedly, then looked at Yin Guanghui and said, Father, don't be fierce to me. If you want to be fierce, then be fierce to Brother Wolf. It was Brother Wolf who kept dragging me to drink. In fact, I didn't want to drink either. He said he didn't want to drink, but as soon as he finished speaking, he drank a cup. His face was full of intoxication and enjoyment, as if he didn't want to drink. Seeing this, Yin Guanghui's face was dark, and his veins were bulging. He obviously wanted to drink, but he blamed the golden-winged wolf king. The worst thing was, he actually used the golden-winged wolf king to pressure him. Yin Zifeng ran to Yin Zhongyue with a wine cup and said fawningly, Sister Yu, try it. This is a real divine brew. Divine brew? Yin Zhongyue's eyes lit up, and she quickly sniffed it. Her face was also full of intoxication. Oh no! Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui both knew something was wrong. As expected, a scene that made Qin Feiyang dumbfounded appeared. Yin Zhongyue immediately put down the teacup in her hand, got up and followed Yin Zifeng to sit beside the white-eyed wolf. Yo, you're a woman, and you like to drink? The white-eyed wolf cried out. Who said that women can't drink? Yin Zhongyue snorted coldly, took the wine jar next to her and gulped it down. An expert. The white-eyed wolf's eyes widened. Of course, Sister Yu, she's a hero among women. Yin Zifeng said proudly, then leaned over to the white-eyed wolf's ear and whispered, Brother, to tell you the truth, Sister Yu taught me how to drink. Then you've met a kindred spirit? The white-eyed wolf was taken aback, and quickly took out a few jars of unparalleled divine brew. He bared his teeth and said, Little Yu, don't stand on ceremony. Brother has plenty of divine brew. Let's get drunk today. Seeing such divine brew, Yin Zhongyue's eyes lit up. She laughed heartily and said, Sure, let's get drunk. After saying that, she hooked her arm around Yin Zifeng's neck, as if they were brothers, and said, Brother Feng, you come too. But father, Yin Zifeng was a little embarrassed. Him? Don't worry about him. If he dares to scold you, Sister Yu will teach him a lesson. Yin Zhongyue waved her hand heroically. All right. Yin Zifeng nodded, and seemed a little reluctant. He then looked at Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui with a wronged expression, as if to say, You saw it too. I really didn't want to drink. Chapter 35:14. Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui's faces darkened at the sight before them. It was one thing for a junior to behave like this, but now even an ancestor-level elder was behaving like this. Where was the decency? Wasn't this an embarrassment to the Yin family? Great ancestor, aren't you going to discipline your younger sister? She's not behaving like an elder, having no manners at all. If anyone were to see this, wouldn't they laugh their heads off? Yin Guanghui had nowhere to vent his anger, and could not help but complain to Yin Zhongtian. Yin Zhongtian smiled bitterly. How could he discipline her? This younger sister of his had never been disciplined by him since she was young. Moreover now, the golden-winged wolf king was drinking heartily, and if he were to reprimand him now and ruin the atmosphere, angering the golden-winged wolf king, it would not be good. So there was really nothing he could do. Xiang does not return home all year round, and I only have this one son by my side now. I don't want him to go to waste like this. Yin Guanghui sighed inwardly. Don't worry, he won't. Although the golden-winged wolf king loves to drink, but whether it is in terms of ability or other aspects, he is outstanding. Your son will only benefit from following him. Moreover, they have not reached the point where they are addicted to alcohol. Yin Zhongtian thought to himself. I hope so. Yin Guanghui sighed. Yin Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and said apologetically, Brother Qin, I'm sorry to have made a fool of myself. It's all right. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled, asking curiously, why would Yin Zifeng address Yin Zhongyue as big sister? For Yin Zhongyue to address him as little brother, isn't that messing up the hierarchy? Yin Zhongtian laughed bitterly and explained, this younger sister of mine does not like others calling her old, so the children in the family all call her big sister. If you were to call her great ancestor, she would be unhappy instead. I see. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Speaking of this, he could not help but think of Qin Rishuang. Qin Rishuang's situation was similar to Yin Zhongyue's. Originally, according to seniority, they were both at least at the level of great-grandmother, with a difference of several generations. However, when she interacted with people like the Mermaid Princess and Luo Qingzhu, she had to address her as big sister. She herself did not mind, so what could others do? He could only say that her heart was as she wished. Yin Zhongtian sipped a mouthful of tea and said with a smile, Brother Qin, the reason we've come here this time is mainly to thank you, because all this while, we have not been able to properly thank you. No need. We're all business partners. It's only right that we help each other. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yin Zhongtian said guiltily, but up till now, it has always been you who has been helping us while the help we have given you has been practically nil. The future is long. According to business people, I'm investing first. Qin Feiyang chuckled, looking at the young man before his eyes. Yin Zhongtian was suddenly filled with a myriad of emotions. For the sake of the Yin family, Qin Feiyang had truly put in a lot of effort. Therefore, no matter what, the Yin family would never forget this kindness. Whoosh! At this moment, accompanied by the sound of the air shattering, Pei Dason shot through the air like a bolt of lightning, landing beside Qin Feiyang. Glancing at Yin Zhongtian and the others, he bowed and said, Greetings to the young lord. The Yin family had already moved to the Black Tortoise world for several decades, and Pei Dason naturally knew about it. Towards Yin Zhongtian and the others, Pei Dason was no stranger. After all, as Pei Tianhong's son, he naturally had some understanding of the main characters of the major forces. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. I don't need to introduce myself. No need, no need. Pei Dason waved his hand. Yin Guanghui also smiled. Brother Pei and I can be considered old friends. Pei Dason nodded with a smile, and leaned over to Qin Feiyang's ear, whispering a few words. What? When Qin Feiyang heard this, he glanced at Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui, his brows raised slightly before looking at Pei Dason, asking, Are you sure? I'm sure. Right now, they are in a city in the eastern domain called Thousand Mountain City. Hong Yu and I have tried to persuade them, but they did not take it seriously, so I could only come back to report to you. As for Hong Yu, she is now in Thousand Mountain City, keeping an eye on them to prevent any deaths. Pei Dason nodded. Deaths? Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui were taken aback and asked suspiciously, What's so serious? Pei Dason ignored the two and looked at Qin Feiyang asking, Young master, how do you think this matter should be dealt with? Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and released his perception. After a while, he opened his eyes and with a wave of his hand, an image immediately appeared in the void in front of him. The image showed the streets of a city. There were no less than hundreds of people gathered on the streets at this moment. These people were all citizens of Thousand Mountain City. But at this moment, they were all looking at the two young men standing in the middle of the crowd with righteous indignation. The two young men were about 20 years old, with tall and straight figures and extraordinary looks, but the arrogance between their brows was undisguised. Between the two young men, there was a woman in white. This woman was Pei Hongyu. At this moment, Pei Hongyu looked at the two young men with an extremely ugly expression. Behind Pei Hongyu, there was a 17 or 18-year-old girl, dressed very ordinarily, but she looked very sweet. But at this moment, there was a striking palm print on her face. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zhongfeng immediately stood up and looked at the two young men, their faces full of surprise. Isn't this Yun Zishan and Yun Zimo? Yun Zifeng looked up, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. What's going on? Hearing this, Yun Zhongyue looked up at the situation in the image with a suspicious look in her eyes. Qin Feiyang didn't say anything as he quietly looked at the screen. In the image, not only could everyone be seen clearly, but even their voices could be heard. Who the hell are you? How dare you bully men and women in broad daylight? If you don't explain yourself today, don't even think about leaving Thousand Mountain City. The surrounding citizens surrounded the two young men so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Their eyes were filled with rage. Bully men and women. When Yin Zhongtian heard this, he was immediately shocked. These two unfilial sons. Yin Guanghui roared and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, saying, Brother Qin, don't be angry. I'll go and bring them back now and discipline them well. There's no hurry. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, his eyes fixed on the image. Yin Guanghui looked at Yin Zhongtian for help. Yin Zhongtian was also very anxious, but he did not dare to act rashly. In the image, facing the angry citizens around them, the two young men did not realize the slightest mistake. Instead, their eyes were full of contempt as they looked around and said, What bully? Don't talk nonsense, we just said a few words to her. Say a few words. The moment you came, you asked the young lady if she wanted to go to the restaurant to have fun. Your words were frivolous and unbearable. She didn't want to, but you forced her. She resisted, but you hit her. Look at the young lady's swollen face. Do you think we're all fools? If this isn't bullying, then what is? The surrounding citizens were getting angrier. Even so, the two young men did not have the slightest attitude of admitting their mistake. They were arrogant and domineering. Everyone, please calm down. I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter. Pei Hongyu glanced at the two young men, then looked at the surrounding citizens and smiled apologetically. Miss Hongyu, we believe you, but you have seen the attitude of these two people. Do they look like people who have done something wrong? Whether it was the former Miss Fire Lotus, or the later Pai Lupi and Theta Wang. The two lords have always warned everyone that in the Black Tortoise world, whether it's humans or beasts, we must cherish peace and have manners. It is also because of everyone's efforts that the Black Tortoise world is so peaceful today. All these years, not to mention our Qianshan city, even in the entire eastern region, even in the entire Black Tortoise world, there has never been a case of a woman being molested in the streets. That's right. They don't even have the most basic morals, they are simply scum. Today, they must kneel and apologize to the young lady. The citizens roared angrily. I know. Pei Hongyu nodded and looked at the two young men, saying in a deep voice, You are the disciples of the Yin family, and are indeed born to be superior. But don't forget that you are now in the Black Tortoise world. This is not a place where you can behave atrociously. If you know what's good for you, quickly kneel and apologize. Otherwise, when the young lord comes, not even Yun Zhongtian can save you. A joke. You want us to kneel and apologize to these trash? Who do they think they are? And you, Pei Hongyu, what right do you have to order us? Your blood hall, your Pei family, are now Qin Feiyang's prisoners. To put it bluntly, you are Qin Feiyang's servants, but my Yin family and Qin Feiyang are partners. Our status in the Black Tortoise world and your Pei family are on two completely different levels. So what if Qin Feiyang comes personally? My Yin family is powerful, and now we have a sovereign divine weapon in our hands. Even Qin Feiyang has to rely on my Yin family. How dare he touch us? Their eyes were full of disdain. Bastard! How dare you insult our Lord Sovereign? The people around them were even angrier, and many people even pounced on the two. A bunch of ants, how dare you attack us? The two's eyes turned cold, and their auras erupted. Their cultivation had reached the great perfection imperishable realm, and they were many times stronger than the people of Qianshan City. Immediately, they fell to the ground in a complete mess. How dare you? Pei Hongyu was furious, and her pressure rolled out. The two immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and were sent flying. After all, Pei Hongyu was a great perfection sovereign. How could these two be compared to her? Pei Hongyu, how dare you hurt us? Just you wait. When the great ancestor comes, Qin Feiyang won't be able to save you. The two immediately roared with resentment. Good. I'd like to see if Yin Zhongtian dares to come and kill me. Pei Hongyu sneered, and stepped forward to break the two's legs. She forced them to the ground and shouted, "Apologize to me, not just this little girl, but all the people here. Don't even think about it. You stinking woman, you're dead, I guarantee it." The two of them roared hysterically. How uncultured. Pei Hongyu's eyes flashed coldly, and she raised her hand to slap the two's faces. Chapter 35:15. The Devil's Lands. At this moment it was dead silent. Qin Feiyang sat on the stone bench, silent, his gaze calm. No one knew what he was thinking. The white-eyed wolf twisted the wine jug in his hand, drinking mouthful after mouthful, as if nothing was happening. But it was because of this that the atmosphere became heavier, more oppressive. Sometimes, a silent person was scarier. Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui were sweating profusely from nervousness. Yin Zhongyue put down his wine cup, glancing at Qin Feiyang from time to time, feeling a great pressure. Pei Dason was also nervous, looking at Qin Feiyang. "Young lord, you can't blame Hongyu for this. She has given you enough face. If it weren't for Yin Zishan and Yin Guanghui attacking the civilians, Hongyu would not have acted so rashly." Qin Feiyang finally retracted his gaze, looking at Pei Dason with a smile. "Did I say that I blame her?" Ah. Pei Dason was stunned. He had thought that the Yin family was really Qin Feiyang's honored guests, so he assumed that Pei Hongyu beating up Yin Zishan and Yin Guanghui in public might have angered Qin Feiyang. It was because of this that he hurried back to report this matter to Qin Feiyang. Otherwise he would have done it himself. But now that he heard it, it didn't seem to be the case. "You don't need to worry, Pei Hongyu has done well. If because of this matter, someone comes to seek revenge on you and your sister, then they will be my, Qin Feiyang's enemy." Qin Feiyang enunciated each word clearly, his eyes filled with killing intent as he turned to Yin Zhongtian. "Senior Yin, don't you agree?" Yes. Yin Zhongtian nodded repeatedly, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. Who didn't understand the meaning behind those words? It was a warning to the Yin family. Qin Feiyang continued. "Then Senior Yin, tell me, what is going on? Did I not make myself clear enough?" Yes. Yin Zhongtian nodded, looking at Yin Guanghui. "Speak, what is going on?" Yin Guanghui quivered, hurriedly saying, "On the day we moved to the Black Tortoise world, I've already passed down the order that no one is allowed to cause trouble in the Black Tortoise world. I don't know what's going on." "Then why are they in the eastern region?" Yin Zhongtian said furiously. "This?" Yin Guanghui looked rather flustered. "Speak!" Yin Zhongtian shouted out explosively. "It's like this. When everyone arrived at the Black Tortoise world, they felt that everything was new and interesting. Therefore, many children wanted to go to the eastern, western, northern, and northern regions to experience it. I thought it would be good to let them go and gain some experience, so I approved it. But before I left, I really told them not to cause any trouble. Old ancestor, don't worry, I'll definitely discipline him strictly in the future." Yin Guanghui was furious as well. Why were all of them so useless? She kept causing trouble for him. Now that he looked at it this way, Yin Zifeng was actually less worrisome. Yin Zhongtian glared at Yin Guanghui, then turned to Qin Feiyang with a smile. "Brother Qin, it's our fault for not disciplining them strictly, please forgive us. Please don't be angry, we'll immediately bring them back to the central region, and punish them severely." "Punish them severely? That means they're still alive." The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui were stunned, quickly looking at the white-eyed wolf. What did he mean by that? The white-eyed wolf glanced at the two of them and smiled. It looks like you two really haven't realized how important the people of the Black Tortoise world are in little Qinzi's heart. This big brother will be kind enough to tell you that if you put the people of the Black Tortoise world together with your Yun family, he will choose the people of the Black Tortoise world without hesitation. The two of them felt a chill in their hearts and asked, "Then how should we deal with them?" "I've already said it to this point. You still don't understand? Think about it yourself." After the white-eyed wolf said that, he picked up the wine jug and started drinking on his own. The two of them looked at each other, their faces gradually darkening. Was he going to kill them? The two of them couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang held the teacup and drank silently, his face expressionless. Seeing this situation, the two of them couldn't help but swallow the words that were about to come out of their mouths. His attitude was very clear. There was no room for negotiation. Qin Feiyang finished the tea in his cup. Seeing that the two of them were silent, he put down the teacup and said, "It looks like you need me to help you decide." The two of them trembled and hurriedly waved their hands. "No, no." Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and waited quietly for them to continue. "Kill." The two of them gritted their teeth and nodded. "Then let's kill." Qin Feiyang stood up, and with a thought, a group of people immediately descended in the sky above Qianshan City. "It's the Lord Ruler." "Greetings, Lord Ruler." As soon as the people in the city saw Qin Feiyang, they immediately bowed and saluted. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I'm sorry to have made you suffer." "It's okay, because we know that the Lord Ruler will definitely deal with it impartially." The people roared. "Thank you for your trust." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and landed in front of the little girl. He reached out and touched the bright red palm print and said with heartache, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." The little girl didn't fear Qin Feiyang at all, and was full of respect and worship. Qin Feiyang took out a divine life pill and put it in the little girl's mouth. Then he personally helped the little girl up and said with a smile, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." "I'm not afraid." The little girl shook her head. "So sensible, so cute." Qin Feiyang rubbed the little girl's head and looked up at the two young men under Pei Hongyu's feet. "Young master." Pei Hongyu also hurriedly flew in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed. "Please punish me, young master." "You're protecting everyone, why should I punish you?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "Ah." Pei Hongyu was stunned and a little surprised. "Old ancestor, you have to uphold justice for us." Yun Zishan and the other young man climbed up and quickly ran to Yun Zhongtian to complain. It would have been better if they had not said those words. The moment Yun Zhongtian heard those words, he slapped them across the face, and the two young men were sent flying, crashing into the hard street as blood gushed out from their mouths. "Old ancestor, you." The two young men looked at Yun Zhongtian in disbelief. Yun Zhongtian shouted angrily, "Look at what you've done. You still have the face to ask this old man to uphold justice for you. Old ancestor, isn't this just a small matter?" The two young men were dumbfounded. Indeed, back in the southern continent, to the Yun family, such matters were not worth mentioning. But they had forgotten that they were not in the southern continent, but in the Black Tortoise world. Small matters in the southern continent in the Black Tortoise world were not allowed. "Small matter?" Yun Zhongtian laughed in anger. His hands clenched tightly as he closed his eyes. "Yun Guanghui, do it." "Do it." The two young men looked at Yun Guanghui in shock. Yun Guanghui took a step forward. Looking at the two young men, he sighed. "You have to pay the price for your wrongdoings. Close your eyes, I'll give you a quick death." "Uncle, what do you mean? Are you going to kill us?" "Uncle, you can't do this. We're your nephews, are we not comparable to these trash?" The two young men shouted in fear. "Trash." Qin Feiyang muttered and laughed. Before your Yin family entered the Black Tortoise world, there were many people who came to the Black Tortoise world, including the Devil Hall's Hall Master, Elder Hua, Adizzi, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Chief, Vice Chief, and the Hall of Famers. But no one dared to say that the people of the Black Tortoise world are trash. "Without my Yin family's help, what are you?" The two young men roared. "Ah!" Qin Feiyang laughed. The white-eyed wolf and Pei Dason laughed as well. But when the surrounding commoners heard their words, they were enraged. Stubborn. Yin Guanghui was also enraged. He raised his hand and slapped the two young men. With a slap, the two young men were sent flying. Uncle! The two young men roared. Shut up. My Yin family doesn't have unfilial children like you. Yin Guanghui roared, his eyes filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyang looked at the two young men and said to Yin Guanghui, "We'll kill them later. Bring them to the middle ground first." Middle ground? Yin Guanghui was stunned, but he immediately understood what Qin Feiyang meant. He wanted to make an example out of them. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. These two bastards had caused him so much trouble. Qin Feiyang looked at the surrounding commoners and said with a smile, "Don't worry. From today onwards, these two will never appear in front of you again. We believe in Lord Sovereign, but we won't go so far as to kill them. What we're angry about is that they clearly made a mistake, yet they don't know how to repent. What's worse is that they actually looked down on Lord Sovereign. So we'll teach them a lesson." Smiles appeared on everyone's faces, all of them kind and honest faces, causing Yin Zhongtian and the others to feel ashamed. This was the quality of the Black Tortoise World's inhabitants. Compared to these people, the Yin family's descendants weren't even fit to carry their shoes. Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at the little girl beside him, and asked with a smile, "Will you forgive them?" "As long as they change, I can forgive them." The little girl nodded. "Good girl." Qin Feiyang rubbed the little girl's head and said with a smile, "Work hard and cultivate." "Okay." The little girl giggled. Huff. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and turned to Yin Guanghui. "Take them and leave." Yin Guanghui immediately stepped forward and grabbed the two young men. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people immediately landed in Middle State. There was a newly built city below. This was the Yin family's home in Middle State. The city wasn't very big, but there were a few 100,000 people living in it. But it was very prosperous. As for the families of Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and the others, their lives were much simpler. They did not have a majestic city, nor did they have tall walls. They lived in the mountains, and lived in harmony with the beasts of the central continent. In the past, Qin Feiyang didn't think much of it. But now that the Yin family had arrived, there was no doubt that it was a stark contrast. Although Pei Tianhong and the others' families used to live a life of luxury, ever since they came to the Black Tortoise World, they had shed their glamour and restrained their spirit. They were like ordinary people, living a carefree life. However, the Yin family still preferred that kind of luxurious, extravagant, and leisurely lifestyle. However, Qin Feiyang wouldn't care about such things. After all, everyone had a life they liked. It didn't matter what they wanted, as long as they followed the rules and didn't cause trouble for the Black Tortoise World. Chapter 35:16. However, some people just didn't know what was good for them, and had to touch his bottom line. The people of the Black Tortoise World had always been selfless for him, and he would never allow anyone to hurt them. "Everyone from the Yin family come out!" Qin Feiyang shouted. His voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions. Whoosh! Immediately, one figure after another flew out of the city. In less than 10 breaths, the people in the city came out and gathered in the void. "Isn't that Yun Zishan and his companion? Why are they in such a sorry state?" When they saw Yun Zishan and his companion, the faces of the Yin family were full of surprise. "Shana!" Two middle-aged men flew out from the crowd. They were Yin Guanghui's two younger brothers, Yin Guangrong and Yin Guangyao. Yun Zishan and his companion were their two sons. Yin Guangrong looked at Yin Guanghui and Yin Zhongtian and said angrily, "Big brother, old ancestor, what happened? Who beat them up like this?" "Me," Pei Hongyu said. "Pei Hongyu?" The two were slightly stunned and immediately looked at Pei Tianhong and shouted, "Why did you do this? My Yin family has nothing to do with your Pei family. You have nothing to do with us." But they bullied and humiliated the young master in the East region. They deserved it. Pei Hongyu snorted coldly. "What?" The two were shocked and looked at Yun Zishan and his companion. "Is it true?" "It's true. But we didn't do anything." We just said a few words and gave that woman a slap. What's the big deal? Father, save us. Uncle said he wants to kill us. The two cried out with a look of grievance. What? Kill them? Yin Guangrong and his companion's eyes trembled, and quickly looked at Yin Guanghui. Big brother, is this true? Yes. They deserve to be killed, Yin Guanghui said in a deep voice. Until now they were still saying that it was just a slap, and that it was no big deal. They simply wouldn't change. Big brother. Although they are wrong, they don't deserve to die. Yin Guangrong and his companion hurriedly cried out. That's right. The people of Qianshan have already said that they have forgiven us. Why are you pretending to be good? Yin Zishan coldly snorted. Hearing those words, not to mention Yin Guanghui and Yin Zhongtian, even Yin Zhongyue and Yin Zifeng were enraged. How could he be so self-righteous after making a mistake? He even scolded them in an eccentric manner. How could the Yin family have such a disciple? Yin Guangyao said. Since the other party has already forgiven them, then there's nothing for us to pursue. The people of Qianshan City can forgive them because they are kind, but I can't. Qin Feiyang finally opened his mouth, his tone revealing a bone-piercing coldness. Yin Guangyao and Yin Guangrong were shocked. They quickly looked at Qin Feiyang and cupped their hands. Brother Qin, if they have offended you in any way, I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive them. After all, they are still children. Two perfect imperishable stage cultivators, and their children. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he wanted to laugh, but he couldn't, because he realized that he had overestimated the Yin family. If he had known that the Yin family was filled with such people, he would never have gone through so much trouble to help them, not to mention bringing them to the Black Tortoise world. Brother Qin, can I apologize to you on their behalf? Yin Guangyao looked at Qin Feiyang with a pleading look. Not everything can be solved with an apology. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly, his gaze sweeping over the Yin family members below. I've already told Yin Guanghui and Senior Yin that once the Yin family enters the Black Tortoise world, no one is allowed to harm the people of the Black Tortoise world, not even the fierce beasts. Yin Guanghui has also warned you, so why did such a thing happen? The hundreds of thousands of people were silent. It's because you all simply did not place my, Qin Feiyang's, words in your eyes at all. I think it's very interesting. It was me who helped your Yin family, and gave you a place to stay. So why do you think that your guests invited by me, Qin Feiyang? Do I have to rely on your Yin family? I want to ask, who gave you the confidence? Who gave you the courage? Yin Zhongtian? Yin Zhongyue? Or your Yin family's sovereign divine weapon? Let me tell you, if I can let the Yin family obtain this sovereign divine weapon, I can also make you lose it. Don't jump around in front of me all day. You're not qualified to be my sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyang's gaze was extremely cold. His words were merciless, causing many of the Yin family members below to show dissatisfaction. Not satisfied? Don't talk about the sovereign divine weapon. Just the few of you I, Qin Feiyang, can easily deal with you. This is strength. I've already been very polite to you, so don't go too far. From now on, restrict the Yin family's movements, except for the central state. No one is allowed to go anywhere. If anyone dares to step into the western, eastern, southern, or northern regions without permission, they will end up like these two. The moment Qin Feiyang's words fell, his eyes were filled with killing intent. His palm fell. The law of karma surged out. Yin Zishan and Yin Guanghui screamed as their bodies shattered in the void, their blood staining the sky red. Shaner, Yin Guangrong and Yin Guangyao bared their teeth and roared. Qin Feiyang, you've gone too far. Boom. Their eyes turned red as their aura surged out, pouncing towards Qin Feiyang. Courting death. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Qin Feiyang's face darkened as he sneered. Seems like killing two juniors today isn't enough. With a single thought, the law of karma came crashing down from the sky, sending the two flying. So strong. Everyone in the Yin family trembled as they watched this scene. What kind of power is this? Yin Guangrong and Yin Guanghui steadied themselves as they looked at the law of karma in the sky. This is the law of karma of the Black Tortoise world. You little trash. I can exterminate your family in a matter of minutes. The white-eyed wolf's face was filled with disdain. The law of karma. Hearing this, Yin Zhongtian's eyes flickered as he took a step forward and slapped Yin Guangrong and Yin Guanghui, causing blood to flow from the corner of their mouths. Old ancestor. Both of them roared. Shut up. If you dare to be presumptuous again, not to mention Qin Feiyang, this old man will personally slaughter you. Yin Zhongtian barked. Both of them trembled. Yin Zhongtian hurriedly turned around to look at Qin Feiyang and said apologetically, Brother Qin, it's all our fault. Please be magnanimous and forgive us. I assure you that such a thing will never happen again. Yes, 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 I promise you as well. Yin Guangrong quickly added. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, then glanced at the Yin clansman below, and said indifferently, All right, I'll give you one more chance. Immediately call the other Yin clansmen in the 4 major regions back. Thank you. Both of them thanked him repeatedly. Pei Daisen Pei Hongyu. Qin Feiyang said again. Subordinate is here. The two of them walked up to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, From now on, whoever dares to cause trouble, whoever dares to step out of the central region, kill them all without mercy. Yes. Both of them nodded respectfully. In their hearts, they were actually quite happy. After working so hard for so long, they had finally gained some trust from Qin Feiyang. After Qin Feiyang left, the white-eyed wolf glanced at Yin Zhongtian, grinning widely. Old man, did you know? Because of these descendants of yours, you will miss out on a great fortune. Ah. Yin Zhongtian looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. What great fortune? Looks like you're not as lucky as Pei Tianhong and the others. The white-eyed wolf grinned, looking at Yin Zifeng. Little brother, let's go. All right. Yin Zifeng was taken aback, quickly nodding his head and following the white-eyed wolf, flying towards the Devil's Land. Great fortune. Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu looked at each other, their eyes filled with desire. Of course, they knew what this great fortune was, because they were working hard for it now. Yin Guanghui scratched his head, looking at Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu, asking, Brother Pei, do you know what this fortune is? Haha. Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu looked at Yin Guanghui and chuckled, turning around and leaving without a word. This. Yin Guanghui's face was full of suspicion. Yin Zhongtian was also looking like a monk, who could not make head or tail of the situation. Old ancestor, big brother. What are you doing? Although we live in the Black Tortoise world, there's no need to be so humble. Yin Guanghui and Pei Hongyu ran up to Yin Zhongtian and Yin Guanghui, shouting angrily. Humble myself. When the two heard this, they were instantly enraged. Yin Guanghui also raised his hand, slapping each of them, saying angrily, Didn't we already tell you about our Yin family's situation? Don't you understand? If it weren't for Qin Feiyang, we would be dead. Moreover, this matter was originally Yin Zishan's fault. To be honest, if you were in this situation, you would be even angrier. Qin Feiyang is still considered magnanimous, not venting his anger on our entire Yin family, nor did he chase us out. So cherish this opportunity. Yin Guanghui shook his head and sighed, adding on. I know, but there's no need to die. Yin Guanghui was still unconvinced. Are you not going to listen to my words? Death is still too easy for them. If our entire Yin family is implicated because of this, even if we grind their bones to dust, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. Yin Guanghui said angrily. Yin Guanghui and Yin Guangyao looked at each other, lowering their heads in silence. It seemed that they were quite afraid of Yin Guanghui. Yin Zhongtian also looked at the two and said in a deep voice, Yin Guanghui, Yin Guangyao, let this old man warn you. Don't even think about taking revenge on Qin Feiyang. If you anger him because of you, this old man will not let you off easily. After saying that, he looked at Yin Guanghui and said, From now on, you must restrain your subordinates. If something like this happens again, I will hold you responsible. Yes. Yin Guanghui nodded. My head hurts. Yin Zhongtian rubbed his forehead and turned to look at Yin Zhongyue, saying, You accompany me to the demonic land again. This matter must be completely forgiven by Qin Feiyang. All right. Yin Zhongyue nodded and answered straightforwardly. She was not going there to apologize, but for the divine brew. Chapter 35:17. In the Devil's Land. Qin Feiyang returned to the Devil's Land and sat in the tea garden, drinking tea and trying to calm the irritation in his heart. The White-Eyed Wolf and Yun Zifeng were still carelessly drinking a jar of black tortoise divine brew each. After drinking for a while, the White-Eyed Wolf felt a little stifled. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said, "Little Qinzi, if you're really unhappy, just drive them out. Is there a need to sulk over there?" Yes. Some people don't know what's good for them. There's no need to help them." Yun Zifeng also nodded. Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf couldn't help looking at Yun Zifeng in astonishment. "Why are you looking at me like that? Although Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao are my second and third uncles, and although Yun Zishan and Yun Zifeng are my cousins, I don't have any feelings for them. I'll say it in one sentence. I've never had a good impression of these two cousins. Not only in the Black Tortoise world, but in the southern continent, they were also standard playboys. If it weren't for this, not to mention you, I would have gotten rid of this evil long ago," Yun Zifeng said faintly. Yun Zifeng said indifferently. He did not care about the two's deaths at all. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. This kid was indeed different from the rest. At least he hadn't misjudged Yun Zifeng. He was indeed a good young man. Yun Zifeng bared his teeth and said, "But Qin Dage, don't drive me away. I don't want anything from you. It's just that I can't leave this divine brew." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. It seemed that the White-Eyed Wolf had already taken a liking to this kid. The White-Eyed Wolf patted Yun Zifeng's shoulder and chuckled. "Little brother, don't worry. With your brother Wolf here, no matter how much courage he has, he won't dare to chase you away. You think you're so great?" Qin Feiyang's face darkened. All day long, he didn't teach anything good. All he did was play around with fancy stuff. "I didn't say that. You said it. Since you said that I'm amazing, then it seems that I'm really amazing." The White-Eyed Wolf grinned. Looking at the White-Eyed Wolf's shameless appearance, Qin Feiyang was speechless. To be able to train one's skin to be so thick, it could be considered a skill. Whoosh! At this moment, Yin Zhongtian and his sister came tearing through the air. "Sister Yu." Yun Zifeng immediately waved his hand and shouted. Yun Zhongyue looked down, and a smile crept onto her face. She landed beside the White-Eyed Wolf and Yun Zifeng, and then extended her hand in front of the White-Eyed Wolf. "You really don't know what being polite is." White-Eyed Wolf snorted, and took out a bottle of black tortoise divine brew. We're here on official business. Why are you still drinking?" Looking at this scene, Yun Zhongtian was extremely helpless. If it weren't for his age, he really wanted to go up and give Yun Zhongyue and Yun Zifeng a tight slap each. With such a big thing happening, as a member of the Yun family, and a core member of the Yun family, couldn't they help out a little? Now both of them were drinking, as if it had nothing to do with them. Qin Feiyang glanced at Yun Zhongyue, also a little speechless. How could a woman like to drink so much? Was it because she was too old? "Brother Qin." Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and bowed. "Regarding today's matter, I'm really sorry. I hope you can forgive me." Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian, pondering for a moment, and said with a faint smile, "Senior Yin, have a seat." Yun Zhongtian was a little hesitant. Qin Feiyang smiled. "Don't say that if I don't forgive you, you'll keep standing." Yun Zhongtian smiled sheepishly. He really did have such a thought. But after hearing what Qin Feiyang said, he felt that for someone of his age to do such a thing, it was a little childish. So, he sat down beside Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang poured a cup of tea and gently retreated to stand before Yun Zhongtian, sighing, "Senior, I'm actually not angry at you. I just feel that many of your Yun family members do not have a heart that knows how to repay kindness. To be honest, if you were to encounter such a situation, you would be even angrier than I am." "I understand." Yun Zhongtian nodded, and then sighed softly saying, "But there's no other way. After all, there are hundreds of thousands of our family members below. Their moral character and quality are definitely not the same." "Of course I know that. That's why I did not make a move just now. Just take it as a warning to them." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Thank you." Yun Zhongtian's face was filled with gratitude. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, muttering to himself as he sipped his tea. Suddenly he said, "Senior, let me take you to a place." "All right." Yin Zhongtian nodded. "Qin Dage, where are you going?" Hearing this, Yin Zifeng looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked suspiciously, "A place where you can understand me." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Ah." Yin Zifeng and Yin Zhongyue exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with curiosity. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, putting down the teacup in his hand. With a wave of his hand, a group of people appeared above the western domain. "This place is?" Yin Zhongtian and the other two looked at the blood sea below in shock. They could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but this was the first time they had seen such a huge blood sea. Qin Feiyang explained, "You may not know, but the truth is the western domain is a blood sea. There's not a single living thing." Ah. The three of them were bewildered. They really did not know about this matter. Although they had been in the Black Tortoise world for several decades, they had always been in the Central Oblast. Needless to say, Yun Zifeng had always been in the Devil's Lands and had never gone anywhere else. The western domain was so big, but there was not a single living thing. It was a blood sea. Qin Feiyang waved his hand again, and in the void in all directions, images appeared. There were humans, fierce beasts, old people over 70 years old, and even children of 5 or 6 years old. Without exception, they were all donating blood. "What's going on?" The three of them looked at this scene with puzzlement. Qin Feiyang sighed. "They are all living things from the Eastern Domain, Southern Domain, Northern Domain, and Central Oblast. They came all the way here to donate blood because of me." "Because of you?" The three of them looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "You all know about the slaughter domain, right?" "Of course. It's comparable to a sovereign divine weapon." The three of them nodded. Yes, the slaughter domain can compete with a sovereign divine weapon. However, opening the full power of the slaughter domain requires a large amount of blood to complete. Qin Feiyang said. "Blood?" The three of them exchanged glances, then looked at the images around them. "In other words, they are all donating blood to prepare for you to open the slaughter domain." "That's right. All these years, I don't know how many times I've opened the slaughter domain, nor do I know how much blood I've absorbed. But every time I open the slaughter domain, it's their blood that I've absorbed. Moreover, I've never forced them to donate blood, it's all voluntary. Because they know that I need a large amount of blood to open the slaughter domain. So every time the blood sea dries up, they would voluntarily come forward to donate their blood. Take a look. Even those 5 or 6-year-old children are willing to donate their precious blood. Old Senior Yin, do you think I can send people to harm them?" Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. Every time he thought of the sacrifices the Black Tortoise world had made for him, his heart was filled with guilt. "So that's how it is." Yin Zhongtian and the other two murmured. This scene gave them too much of an emotional impact. Without any coercion, all of them volunteered to donate blood. Even the cold-blooded fierce beasts and the naive children were the same. How big of a favor was this? They finally understood why Qin Feiyang was so protective of the Black Tortoise world. It was to repay their kindness. Although the Black Tortoise world's crystal veins, spirit veins, herbs, elixirs, divine weapons, and divine arts were all given to them by me, compared to their efforts, I feel that these things I've given them are nothing more than small favors. Therefore, I constantly swore in my heart that I would protect them well, and not allow anyone to bully them. So when I found out that Yin Zishan and the others were bullying the people of Thousand Mountain City, I was really angry, especially when I saw the palm print on that little girl's face. To tell you the truth, I really had the urge to wash your Yin family in blood. Qin Feiyang said. Yin Zhongtian and the other two were silent. In fact, this kind of thing is indeed a small matter, but in my eyes it's intolerable, because they are my bottom line, my reverse scale. Therefore, I hope that old Senior Yin can understand this junior, and restrain our people well in the future. Qin Feiyang looked pleadingly at Yin Zhongtian. Yin Zhongtian took a deep breath and nodded. Don't worry, if this kind of thing happens again, this old man will directly cut off my own head and present it to you as an apology. Thank you. Qin Feiyang bowed deeply, and looked at the surrounding images again. In one of the images, a little boy around 6 years old had just finished donating his blood. Pressing on his wrist, he looked up at a middle-aged man beside him and asked, "Daddy, why do we have to come here every year to donate blood?" The middle-aged man rubbed the little boy's head and smiled. "Because our Lord Ruler needs it." "Why does our Lord Ruler need so much blood?" the little boy asked innocently. "You're still too young. You won't understand even if I tell you. You just have to remember the beautiful life we have now, the superior cultivation environment we have. It's all because of our Lord Ruler. He's our guardian deity. Whether it's a person or something else, we must know how to repay kindness. So we must contribute our strength to help our Lord Ruler." The middle-aged man smiled. "All right. I will remember Daddy's words and become a man who repays kindness." The little boy nodded, his eyes shining with a resolute light. "That's right. Not only must we repay kindness, we must also work hard to become a man like our Lord Ruler, one who is responsible and responsible. Only then will our lives not be in vain." The middle-aged man smiled faintly. The little boy nodded vigorously. "All right, let's go home." The middle-aged man smiled and led the little boy away with a suave turn. Chapter 35:18. Yun Zhongtian and the other two looked at the father and son leaving in the image and couldn't help but feel moved, because they didn't see any selfishness in this father and son. Especially that father, when educating his child, he was full of positive energy. This was a scene that would never be seen in the sky cloud realm. In the face of such warmth, even a person with a heart of stone would be melted. At this time, they had a new understanding of the Black Tortoise realm and Qin Feiyang. The creatures here, be it humans or dire beasts, were worth protecting. They also finally saw clearly what kind of person Qin Feiyang was. After leaving the western region, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf returned to the Devil's Land. Yun Zifeng wanted to follow, but was rejected by Qin Feiyang because they had other things to do. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zhongyue returned to the central region and once again warned their clansmen, especially Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao, not for anything else, but for the cute people and beasts of the Black Tortoise realm, to not harm them anymore. 2 days later, Qin Feiyang finally adjusted his state and walked out of the castle. Looking at the white-eyed wolf who was drinking on the side, he asked, "Do you think we should go to the other 3 forbidden areas?" "Isn't that up to you?" The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes at him. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. "Is there a need to be so conflicted? If you want to go, then go. Maybe the other 3 forbidden areas also have places of inheritance. Even if we can't find an ally, it's not bad to get 1 or 2 inheritances. If you don't want to go, then plan to deal with the dragons and the second princess." The white-eyed wolf said, "I want to go, but I really don't know the position of the 3 forbidden areas." Qin Feiyang frowned. "You don't even know who the 3 forbidden areas are. How can you figure out their position? If you ask me, no matter what position they have, let's kill our way in first." The white-eyed wolf waved his claws indifferently. "If only it were as simple as you said." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. If they met the dragon's opponents, it would be fine. Even if they couldn't become allies, their lives wouldn't be in danger. But if they were unlucky and met the dragons as allies, they would have to face the danger of being hunted. So, now it was equivalent to gambling. The ingrate waved his paw impatiently and said, "Then take your time to think about it. Are you going or not?" "Of course." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it and said with a frown, "I'm just hesitating. Which forbidden area should we go to first?" That's a good idea." The white eyes s. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched as he directly kicked him. "What's not bad?" Why don't we just pick one? If we really meet the dragon's allies, we'll just run for our lives." The white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and nodded. "Okay, we happen to be on Sea Lion Island, in the western continent. Let's pick the closest region." "That's right. Don't be so wishy-washy. Just do it." The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He also wanted to be quick, but at this time, he had to be careful. After all, with their current strength and foundation, there was still a long way to go before they could compare with the 4 forbidden areas. The white-eyed wolf asked, "Then should we bring Yin Zhongtian?" Let's ask him first. It's best if we can go together. After all, he was born and raised in the Sky Cloud realm. He knows the situation of the region better than us. Qin Feiyang said. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about his sovereign divine weapon. With one more sovereign weapon, even if we run for our lives, our chances will be higher. The white-eyed wolf grinned. We haven't even started, and you're already talking about running for your life. Isn't that bad luck? Qin Feiyang glared at it fiercely, and turned to look at the ancient castle. Then I'll leave the Black Tortoise realm to you for the time being. Be careful, the ancient castle warned. Entering the region might be the same as entering the Yin demon land. They couldn't enter the Black Tortoise realm, and couldn't open the Slaughter realm. When they encounter danger, they could only rely on Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's own abilities. Even if they couldn't, only the horsetail whisk could help. Qin Feiyang nodded. The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. You go find Yin Zhongtian first. This brother has something to take care of. After saying that, without waiting for Qin Feiyang's response, it grabbed the wine jar and flew away like lightning. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. It was obvious that this damn wolf cub was going to find Zhao Si to get the wine. Following closely, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and released his perception. Soon, he found Yin Zhongtian, and with a thought, Yin Zhongtian appeared in front of him. And Yin Zhongtian was a little suspicious at first, but when he saw Qin Feiyang, a smile appeared on his face and he asked with a smile, Is there something you need from this old man? There is indeed something I want to discuss with old senior. This junior is going to make a trip to the region, so I wanted to ask if old senior is interested in going with me. Qin Feiyang smiled. The region? Yin Zhongtian was taken aback for a moment, and his face suddenly became serious. That is not a good place. When I was young, this old man went there several times, and every time I survived. You've been there? Then where is the deepest place you've been? Qin Feiyang asked. The central region, Yin Zhongtian replied. Is that so? Qin Feiyang nodded. If it was only the central region, then Yin Zhongtian's understanding of the region was almost zero, because only by entering the inner region can one be considered to have officially stepped into the region. As for the central region, the border region, and the outer region, they are just ordinary adventure grounds. Interest there is definitely. Not to mention this old man. Any living being in the Sky Cloud realm is interested in the inner and core regions of the 4 major regions, but no one has the ability to enter. As long as Brother Qin doesn't mind this old man being more of a hindrance, this old man is willing to accompany Brother Qin on this trip. Yin Zhongtian laughed hoarsely. You're too kind. This junior can't ask for more. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. A supreme master with a sovereign weapon. How could he be more of a hindrance? Too modest. Whoosh! White-eyed wolf rushed back and looked at Yin Zhongtian before looking at Qin Feiyang and asked, How was it? Old senior Yin is still very loyal. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. White-eyed wolf laughed and looked at Yin Zhongtian. Old man, do your best. Who knows, you might have a chance to get that great fortune. Yin Zhongtian was stunned and asked, What kind of fortune is it? This was not the first time White-eyed wolf had mentioned it, and he was really curious. You will know when the time comes. White-eyed wolf bared his teeth and looked at Qin Feiyang. Big brother is ready, let's go. How much did you take? Qin Feiyang asked. Not much, just a few thousand jugs. White-eyed wolf chuckled. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. A few thousand jugs was not much? Are we going or not? White-eyed wolf looked at him impatiently. Go. But let's go to Lion King Island and Sky Cloud Island first. Qin Feiyang said. Delivering wine again? White-eyed wolf frowned. Our relationship is still maintained. Qin Feiyang chuckled. With a wave of his hand, the 2 men and 1 wolf appeared above Sea Lion Island. Seeing that Sea Lion was cultivating, Qin Feiyang did not disturb it, and had White-eyed wolf open a space-time portal, and directly descended above Lion King Island. This is Lion King Island? Yun Zhongtian looked at the island below with a trace of surprise on his face. Although he was an overlord, he rarely set foot in the heavenly cloud sea. Because in the eyes of giants like him, the heavenly cloud sea was no less dangerous than the four forbidden lands. Naturally, he knew about the Sea Lion Emperor and the other Beast Emperors. He also knew a thing or two about the Beast Emperor's lairs, but it was his first time stepping into one. Honored guests, please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Accompanied by a gentle laughter, a young man flew out from the mountain below and landed in front of Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and the white-eyed wolf. Senior. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. Sea Lion King laughed. You brat, you definitely don't come to the temple for no reason. Speak. Senior, don't say that, it's quite embarrassing. But this time, Junior really didn't come for anything. I'm just here to deliver wine. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Deliver wine? Sea Lion King was taken aback. Qin Feiyang looked at White-Eyed Wolf and said, Take out 1,000 jars. What? 1,000 jars? White-Eyed Wolf's expression froze. I know you want to build a good relationship, but you don't have to be so generous. Hurry up, Qin Feiyang urged. All right. White-Eyed Wolf waved his paw, and 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine appeared. He looked at Sea Lion King and snorted, You're lucky. Haha, Sea Lion King laughed heartily. Looking at the divine wine in front of him, his eyes were burning with passion. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Then I won't be polite. What's there to be polite about? We're all on the same side. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at White-Eyed Wolf again. Take out another 1,000 jars. What? White-Eyed Wolf's face was dark. Is there no end to this? He took out another 1,000 jars gloomily. Qin Feiyang looked at Sea Lion King and said with a smile, These 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine are for the other 7 senior beast emperors. I'll have to trouble you to pass it to them. You're sensible. No problem, I'll send it to them later. To tell you the truth, I originally wanted to keep the divine wine you gave me last time, but those 7 old things came to my place to play and found the divine wine. They divided it on the spot and said that it wasn't enough. Before they left, they said that the next time I meet you, I must get a few more jars from you. Now I'm giving them 1,000 jars. When they see it, they will definitely be happy. Sea Lion King laughed. It's good that the seniors like it. Qin Feiyang chuckled. He didn't expect the 8 beast emperors to like this. Then it's easy to handle. In the future, he will give them some from time to time. Chapter 35:19. Sea Lion Emperor asked, Then let's go to the cave for a while? No need. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. I still have to go to my big brother's place. Are you going to deliver the wine too? Sea Lion Emperor was taken aback and laughed. Yes, this big brother of mine. You must know better than me that the days without wine are worse than death for him. Qin Feiyang smiled. Sea Lion Emperor couldn't help but smile bitterly and nodded. All right, since you are going to Sky Cloud Island, I won't force you to stay. Come and play when you have time in the future. Okay, this junior will take his leave. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and bowed, then asked the White-Eyed Wolf to open the teleportation channel and turned to leave. Sky Cloud Island. When Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf appeared, they didn't see any trace of the little rabbit. Obviously, it was teaching the madman and others to cultivate. Yun Zhongtian glanced at Sky Cloud Island and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Brother Qin, the big brother you just mentioned, could it be the little rabbit here? That's it. I've become sworn brothers with senior brother Psycho and that thing. Qin Feiyang laughed. This? Yun Zhongtian was stunned. Was this a joke with him? How could the little rabbit become sworn brothers with a human? But looking at Qin Feiyang's appearance, he didn't seem to be joking, and even the Sea Lion Emperor knew about it. It was unbelievable. How did these two brats do it? They actually had a relationship with the little rabbit. And in addition to the little rabbit, their relationship with the Sea Lion Emperor seemed to be good. One must know, powerhouses like them regarded the Sky Cloud Sea as a forbidden area, and Qin Feiyang and Madman Emo were actually sworn brothers with the little rabbit. which really made people envious. No wonder the white-eyed wolf and Snowflake brought them to the sky cloud sea when they were transferred. In the eyes of others, the sea of heavenly clouds was a terrifying place, but in the eyes of Qin Feiyang and the others, it was equivalent to their back garden. Yo, little brother, you can't survive outside anymore, so you're here to seek refuge with Big Brother? Suddenly, accompanied by a strange voice, the little rabbit rushed out from the mountain below. That's right. I can't survive anymore. Big Brother, please take me in. Qin Feiyang smiled flatteringly. Scram. How shameless. Do you think Uncle Rabbit doesn't know what you've done in the southern continent? The little rabbit rolled her eyes at him. Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said, So Big Brother has been secretly watching this little brother all this time. I'm touched, white-eyed wolf. Quickly send over 2,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine to show our respect to Big Brother. 2,000? The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He braced himself and took out 2,000 jugs of divine wine. Not bad, not bad. Filial piety. The little rabbit was also beaming with joy. With a wave of her paw, she grabbed a jug of wine and drank. Qin Feiyang pointed to Yin Zhongtian and said with a smile, Big Brother, let me introduce you. This is Yin Zhongtian, my partner now. When he comes to the heavenly cloud sea in the future, please take care of him. Greetings to Uncle Rabbit. Yin Zhongtian bowed. The little rabbit glanced at Yin Zhongtian and nodded. All right, as long as you don't hurt the sea beasts of the heavenly cloud sea, you can do whatever you want. Thank you, Uncle Rabbit. Yin Zhongtian was just overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, because this meant that he could step into the heavenly cloud sea at any time in the future, and there would be no danger. It was equivalent to opening the door to the Forbidden Land, which would be of great help to the Yin family in the future. All right, the wine has been sent over. You can scram now. The little rabbit waved her paw. Heartless. Qin Feiyang shook his head looking sad. Too enthusiastic. Uncle Rabbit is afraid you can't take it. The little rabbit laughed, her eyes filled with evil intentions. All right, I'll leave right away. Qin Feiyang saw that the situation was not good, and quickly waved his hand, and looked at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf was also quite afraid of the little rabbit, and quickly opened a space portal. And then the 2 men and 1 wolf ran in without looking back. Brat. The little rabbit shook her head and laughed. Swish. Just as the portal disappeared, the sea lion emperor suddenly appeared beside the little rabbit and said enviously, I only got 1,000 jars, and you got 2,000 jars. As a sworn brother, you are indeed closer. Of course. The little rabbit smiled proudly, but suddenly frowned and said, Wait, they gave you 1,000 jars. Yes, and a few other old friends. They also gave me 1,000 jars, so each of them can get more than 100 jars. The sea lion emperor nodded. Damn, so generous? All right, give your 1,000 jars to Uncle Rabbit, and the remaining 1,000 jars, the 8 of you can share equally. The little rabbit shamelessly stretched out her paw. The sea lion emperor's face darkened. Even taking by force, she was so righteous? What? Not happy? The little rabbit raised her brow. Cough, cough. The sea lion emperor coughed and regretted coming to Sky Cloud Island. He asked, Are they going to leave for a while? I guess so. Every time they come to deliver the wine, they will disappear for a while. I guess this time, they are going to a forbidden area. The little rabbit nodded. It seems that they are really going to go against the 4 forbidden areas. The sea lion emperor shook his head and sighed. Isn't that good? The answer they are looking for is in one of the forbidden areas. If they don't go there one by one, how will they find it? The little rabbit smiled faintly. True. The sea lion emperor nodded and pondered for a while before asking, When are you going to tell him the secret hidden in the sky cloud ocean? Tell him? The little rabbit raised her eyebrows, looked at the sea lion emperor, and said in a deep voice, Is it because Qin Feiyang gave you some wine that you began to feel compassion? Look at what you are saying. Am I that kind of person without principles? The sea lion emperor was dissatisfied. Good that you know. Friendship is friendship, rules are rules, we can't go against the principles. These things, let him slowly dig it out. We just need to quietly watch. The little rabbit said. All right. The sea lion emperor nodded. The little rabbit turned hostile on the spot and shouted, Don't change the topic. Quickly hand over the wine. Otherwise you can forget about mingling in the sky cloud ocean in the future. In your dreams. The sea lion emperor looked at the little rabbit with disdain and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, in a certain place space and time were in chaos, and heaven and earth were falling. In that void, all kinds of power of laws intertwined, exuding a destructive power. At the edge, a young man sat cross-legged on the ground. He was wearing a white robe, with an extraordinary appearance and an outstanding temperament. His thick black hair fluttered in the wind. Around him, there were also storms that filled the air. That was not an ordinary storm, but a space-time storm. Boom. Suddenly, the white-robed young man opened his eyes. His eyes were as dazzling as the sun. As he waved his hand, the space above him collapsed and turned into pieces of ice crystals. They floated above his head and released an unparalleled aura. I finally comprehended it. Looking at the pieces of ice crystal fragments, the young man in white was quite excited. Immediately after, he looked at the void in front of him that was intertwined with the power of laws, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly stood up, and the ice crystal fragments above his head immediately turned into a giant sword that slashed at the void in front of him. However, when the giant sword slammed into the void, it was instantly swallowed by the power of laws, without setting off any waves. Even the supreme profound of the space-time law is useless? The young man in white looked at the void and muttered to himself. Suddenly, a woman's voice came from the intertwined power of laws. Child, Master has already said that this cage is not something you can break. It turned out that there was a cage in front of him. The young man in white said, Then how can this disciple break this cage and save Master? The voice pondered for a moment, and then sighed. After so many years, I have no hope. No, this disciple will definitely save Master, even if I have to pay with my life. The young man in white clenched his hands, and there was a stubborn look in his eyes. Silly boy, you don't even know who I am, so why waste your time for me? Besides, aren't you afraid that I am a heinous person, and when you let me out, it will bring disaster to the sky cloud realm? The woman's voice was filled with relief and a trace of helplessness. Although this disciple has never seen Master, if it weren't for Master, I would have died here back then. Moreover, if it weren't for Master's guidance over the years, this disciple would probably still be degenerating, and I wouldn't have my current cultivation. Master has given this disciple a new lease of life. Therefore, whether Master is evil or good, I will save you. Besides, this disciple is not stupid. It is not difficult to judge that you are not an evil person from our usual interactions and conversations. The young man in white shook his head. Haha. The voice laughed and said, Don't think too much. Cultivate well, and I will teach you the mysteries of the law of destruction. Without waiting for the woman in the cage to finish speaking, the young man in white roared. Master, tell me first, what can I do to get you out of here? The voice fell silent again. After a long time, the woman's voice finally sounded. She sighed and said, If you want to get me out of here, even a sovereign divine weapon won't be able to do it. Only he. Who is it? The young man in white hurriedly asked. The person I once asked you to find. The woman said. The young man in white frowned. Suddenly he quivered and asked, What about Qin Feiyang? Yes. The woman replied. Why is he the only one who can get you out of here? In terms of cultivation and strength, he is inferior to me. If I hadn't hidden my cultivation back then, he madman mo, and the white-eyed wolf wouldn't have been my match. And his strongest weapon is the sovereign divine weapon, but you just said that the sovereign divine weapon can't break this cage. The young man in white raised his eyebrows. There are some things that I can't tell you yet. In short, in the current world, only this child can get me out of here. The woman said. Then I'll go find him right now. The young man in white said. Child, how can you just say the wind and rain? What's the use of finding him now? You have to wait for him to grow. You should work hard too. You are my disciple, you can't lose to him in the end. Besides, don't you still want to avenge your mother? Come help me after you've dealt with your own matters. The woman's voice was very gentle, with a hint of doting. Revenge? The young man in white clenched his fists and muttered with his head lowered. I've already comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of space-time. I think I have the ability to take revenge now. Suddenly, he looked up at the cage in front of him and said, Master, I want to go back for a while. As long as you've thought it through, then go. The woman smiled. This disciple has thought it through. I don't want to delay any longer. This disciple has had enough of these years of suffering. The young man in white said word by word. His eyes flashed with a cold light. After he finished speaking, he turned around and took a step forward, quickly merging into the void and disappearing. Chapter 35-20. Western Continent. The Heavy Region. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Yun Zhongtian stood above the entrance, scanning the endless black desert. They could see that there were many humans and beasts roaming around the periphery. The white-eyed wolf grinned. Thinking about the last time we ambushed the Blood Dragon Prince here, it's really a pity. You ambushed the Blood Dragon Prince here? Yun Zhongtian was surprised. That's right. Originally, we could have gotten rid of him, but the other princes and princesses came too quickly, and with the Blood Dragon blade blocking us, we almost got rid of him. He was lucky. Under such circumstances he could still preserve a wisp of his soul. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, It's more difficult to kill them now. Definitely. Now that they know our methods, they will also leave a wisp of their soul in the dragon's nest, just like the first prince. The white-eyed wolf nodded, but suddenly frowned, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Why don't we also leave a wisp of our soul in the Black Tortoise world? Makes sense. If we encounter any danger in the heavy region, at least we will have a chance in the future. Yun Zhongtian nodded in agreement. Qin Feiyang was silent when he heard this. What's wrong? Is there a problem? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. There's no problem. However, if we leave a wisp of our soul in the Black Tortoise world, then we will have an indifferent attitude. When we encounter danger, we will not risk our lives like before. Because there are wisps of our soul in the Black Tortoise world anyway, why do we have to risk our lives? This kind of attitude will gradually weaken a person's fighting spirit. Once a person loses his fighting spirit, no matter how good his comprehension is, no matter how good his luck is, it will be useless. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That makes sense. Thinking back, when we faced danger, when did we not fight back desperately and kill our way out? It is because of this that we have improved so quickly. The white-eyed wolf nodded. That's right. A battle, especially a battle of life and death, is a tempering of one's battle consciousness and mentality. I've always believed that no matter if it's a human or any other creature, they can only unleash their full potential in a desperate situation. On the surface, there might not seem to be much of a difference, but everyone knows that a person who has been through life and death situations for many years is far stronger than others. Qin Feiyang said, Take people of the same level for example. They had the same cultivation level, the same divine artifacts and the same methods. However, people who had been through life and death situations were definitely stronger than others. Actually, leaving a divine soul behind in the Black Tortoise world doesn't have much of an impact. Although there's a soul left behind, we'll just pretend that it never happened. When we encounter danger, we'll still risk our lives like before. In short, there's no harm in leaving a way out. Yun Zhongtian said. Hearing that, the white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and said, That makes sense. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at Yun Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf and said, You can leave it behind, but don't try to persuade me otherwise. If I really leave a soul behind in the Black Tortoise world, how could I just ignore it? Subconsciously, I would definitely rely on it. After thinking about it, Qin Feiyang added, Besides, after so many years, I've never done that and I've still lived until now. As a person, we must have confidence in ourselves. All right. If you don't leave it behind, I will. I still want to live for a few more years. The white-eyed wolf waved its claws and a sliver of soul appeared, turning into a miniature golden wolf cub. Yin Zhongtian glanced at the white-eyed wolf, and also decisively split a sliver of his soul. For someone as young as him, his life was more important than others. Brother Qin, just in case, you should leave a sliver of your soul behind as well. After all, the place we're going to now is not an ordinary forbidden land, but one of the 4 great forbidden lands, the heavy region. It's dangerous and unpredictable. Yin Zhongtian couldn't help but advise. Hearing that, Qin Feiyang looked up at the heavy region. Suddenly, the ancient castle's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. There's a need to remind you that splitting your soul is not a good thing. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and quickly asked, "What do you mean?" Let me give you a simple example. For example, epiphany. The state of epiphany requires a complete soul to have a chance of entering it. In other words, if your soul is incomplete, no matter how good your luck is, you will never be able to enter the state of epiphany. In fact, you're right. People should never rely on others. Even if you deliberately want to forget, in your subconscious mind, you will always remember the matter of leaving your soul behind in advance. At that time, even if you try your best, you won't be able to achieve the same effect as before. The ancient castle said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said secretly, "Thank you for the reminder." In his heart, the castle was like a bright light, guiding him on the path forward. Since the ancient castle said so, then he definitely couldn't do it. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze, and with a wave of his hand, he sent the white-eyed wolf and Yin Zhongtian's soul into the ancient castle's cultivation room. Because in the ancient castle, it was safer than anywhere else. Seeing that, Yin Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf did not try to persuade him anymore. After all, everyone had their own choice and they couldn't force it. Let's go. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 2 men and 1 wolf stepped into the heavy region. Look, aren't they Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king? With the appearance of the 2 men and 1 wolf, it immediately caused a big commotion. Now in the Sky Cloud realm, who didn't know them? Even if they hadn't seen them, they had heard of their names. Especially in the Western continent. After the battle with the Blood Hall, the names of Qin Feiyang and the others were already known to everyone. It's really them. I heard that they went to the Een Demon Land last time, and involved a mysterious force. I don't know if it's true or not. Now they have come to the heavy region again. Could it be that there are some secrets hidden in this heavy region? And the old man next to him, why does he look so unfamiliar? No, I seem to have seen him somewhere. Really? Let me think. I think so. I remember, he's the old ancestor of the Yun family in the southern continent, the deputy temple master of the temple. What? It's actually the old ancestor of the Yin family. Why is he with Qin Feiyang? What's the situation? There doesn't seem to be any major news from the southern continent. Everyone was bewildered. Although Qin Feiyang and the others had caused a big disturbance in the southern continent, only the He family knew about it. The He family didn't publicize it wantonly. Therefore, the transfer of the Yun family had not spread to the eastern continent, western continent, northern continent, and even many people in the southern continent were kept in the dark. However, it was only a matter of time before this matter was exposed. At that time, it would inevitably cause another sensation in the Sky Cloud realm. Brother Qin, your prestige is not small now. Everyone knows you wherever you go. Yin Zhongtian chuckled. This may not be a good thing. Qin Feiyang shook his head and ignored the surrounding gazes. He walked to the Black Desert and scanned the surroundings. Gradually, he felt that there seemed to be a trace of gravity in the void. It was just like the ruins of the great Qin Empire. It was just that this gravity wasn't too obvious. Do you feel it? Yin Zhongtian asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. This is the danger of the heavy region. The entire heavy region has a gravitational force. Although the gravitational force you feel isn't very obvious now, the deeper you go, the stronger the gravitational force. The last time I entered the heavy region, I was already a great perfection dominator, and had comprehended the 5th profound of the law of destruction. Even so, I could only step into the central area of the central region, and couldn't go any deeper. Yin Zhongtian said in a deep voice. Then with your current strength? The white-eyed wolf asked. I guess I can only reach the deepest part of the central region. I'm afraid I don't have the ability to step into the inner region, Yin Zhongtian guessed. Then let's give it a try. The white-eyed wolf laughed. This time was different from the Een Devil land. In the Een Devil land, it could absorb the Een Devil power and wouldn't be affected at all. But in the heavy region, it was the same as Qin Feiyang and would also be bound by the gravitational force. So it could be considered a challenge. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, "Then has anyone studied this gravitational force, and where does it come from?" "There must be. It is said that there is a great possibility that this gravitational force is formed by the law of force," Yin Zhongtian said. Law of force? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Yes, but it could also be a divine weapon with the law of force, or the laws of the heavy region itself have the law of force. But no matter what the reason is, it must be related to the law of force. Yin Zhongtian said. Since it is related to the law of force, then will the people who have mastered the law of force be less affected? The white-eyed wolf asked. No. There was once an expert who had mastered the law of force that personally tested it. And the final conclusion was that even if you have mastered the law of force, it will not help you at all. The gravitational force is still as strong as it should be. Yin Zhongtian shook his head. Then, there is no other shortcut, and we can only step into the core area step by step? The white-eyed wolf frowned. That is the case for now. But for you, this old man is not sure. After all, you have too many miracles. Yin Zhongtian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Take the Een Devil land for example. When he learned that the white-eyed wolf and madman were able to absorb the Een Devil power, it was like a dream. What kind of monsters were they? Hey, interesting. The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth. Compared to the Een Devil land, this was more challenging. Of course, this was only for it. For the creatures of the Sky Cloud realm, the Een Devil power of the Een Devil land and the gravity of the heavy region were equally dangerous. Let's speed up. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He was also filled with anticipation. Whoosh! Immediately, two people and a wolf, like a stream of light, galloped forward. There were many people around, and they were about to come up and chat with them. But when they saw the two people and a wolf disappear into the depths without looking back, they couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, this aroused their curiosity even more. They all wanted to know why Qin Feiyang came to the heavy region. Therefore, many people relied on their strength and couldn't help but follow. Chapter 35-21. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Two people and one wolf successfully arrived at the central region. After all, their strength was displayed in front of them. Yin Zhongtian, a perfect dominator, grasped the supreme profound of destruction law. Qin Feiyang, a perfect dominator, grasped the two supreme profound of destruction law and karma law. The white-eyed wolf, needless to say, grasped the supreme profound of the four supreme laws. It was no exaggeration to say that even if a large group of perfect dominators came, it would not be enough to kill them. Therefore, in the entire peripheral region, there was no one who could threaten them. It was still a barren desert in front of them. Sand dunes rose and fell. Every grain of sand was black, revealing a strange atmosphere. Qin Feiyang, Yin Zhongtian, and the white-eyed wolf stopped outside the central region and scanned the front. Here, the gravity was very obvious, as if they were carrying tens of thousands of kilograms of stone on their backs. If they were mortals, they would have been destroyed under this pressure. But for Qin Feiyang and the others, tens of thousands of kilograms of stone was like a joke. They would not be affected at all. Still following? The white-eyed wolf looked back. At this moment, there were no less than thousands of people gathered behind them. There were also many ferocious beasts. The lowest cultivation was at the perfect imperishable realm, and the strongest was at the perfect dominator realm. In this half a month, the news that Qin Feiyang and the other two had entered the region had spread in the peripheral region. Although they could not use voice transmission Godstone here, there were many living beings in the peripheral region. One spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon it became an uproar. So basically they came to join in the fun. Of course. They also wanted to see if they could go deep into the region through Qin Feiyang, Yin Zhongtian, and the White-Eyed Wolf, and get some good fortune. Then, Lord Wolf, don't be angry, just pretend that you didn't see us. Yes, you do your thing, we will not disturb you. The people behind spoke one after another. In addition to respect, there were also compliments. The White-Eyed Wolf raised his eyebrows. The region is not our territory. They are free to do whatever they want. There is no need to be calculative. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Brother Qin is the most reasonable one. Everyone smiled flatteringly. What do you mean? The White-Eyed Wolf frowned and said angrily. Are you hinting that I'm unreasonable? No. Everyone waved their hands. She muttered in her heart. Aren't you being unreasonable right now? He didn't even let others talk about it. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Yin Zhongtian and asked suspiciously. Old senior, why have we encountered so many other dangers along the way? Could it be that gravity is the only danger in this heavy region? Ugh! Yin Zhongtian was stunned. The thousands of humans and beasts behind him were also speechless. Qin Feiyang looked at everyone's reaction and wondered. Shouldn't I ask this question? Yin Zhongtian smiled bitterly and said. Brother Qin, to be honest, this question of yours is just a little infuriating. Infuriating? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. The forbidden zones don't have much danger to begin with. For example, the danger that exists in the Yin Devil land is the power of the Yin Devils. The danger of the heavy region is the gravity. But in fact, the greatest danger comes from ourselves. Humans and beasts entering the forbidden zones to search for treasures will naturally be greedy and lust, which will lead to fighting and killing. Yin Zhongtian smiled. Old Senior Yin is right. You didn't encounter any other dangers along the way, because you are strong and no one dares to provoke you. But if it were others, they might have been ambushed by others as soon as they entered the border area. After all, killing and robbing is a common thing in the forbidden zones. For ordinary people, this is the greatest danger. So Brother Qin, now you know how much of a shock your question is to us. Among the crowd behind, there were many people who had a wry smile on their faces. I'm sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. He really didn't think about this. It did make sense. The dangers of the forbidden zones were without a doubt. But the greatest danger was still human nature. Greed and lust would make war everywhere. Such a good attitude. He's actually apologizing to us. Looking at the apologetic face of Qin Feiyang, thousands of humans and beasts were stunned. Wasn't the legendary Qin Feiyang cold, heartless, and tyrannical? But now he didn't have the slightest domineering attitude. He was just like the boy next door, kind and approachable. It seemed that the rumors might not be true. Qin Feiyang once again looked forward, and suddenly took a step forward, crossing the border and stepping into the central region. Boom! A powerful gravitational force suddenly pressed down like a tidal wave. Qin Feiyang was shocked. The gravity of this step was dozens of times different. Although he could still move freely, flying in the air was no longer possible. White-Eyed Wolf and Yin Zhongtian also stepped into the central region. Yin Zhongtian was already used to it, but White-Eyed Wolf was also shocked. The difference was a little beyond his imagination. White-Eyed Wolf scanned the void, his brows furrowed. The gravity of the central region is already so strong. I think the gravity of the inner region is enough to make it difficult for us to move. We must think of a way to resist this gravity. Qin Feiyang nodded and took a deep breath. Let's go first. We'll talk about it when we reach the inner region. Facing such an unknown place, even if you stayed here and racked your brains, you might not be able to think of a way to deal with it. So the best way was to take it one step at a time. Of course, this was also something that required confidence. If you did not have powerful strength to back you up, it was best not to take the risk. After all, if you really encountered danger and were unable to solve it, you would lose your life. The 3 men and 1 wolf stepped forward and continued to go deeper. Did you hear that? They're heading for the inner region. My ears are fine. Of course I heard it. Unbelievable. They're actually going to the inner region. It really proves the saying that the strong are bold. Then are we going to continue? The inner region is not something we can face. Not to mention the inner region, I don't even have the ability to reach the depths of the central region. Anyway, I'm going to take a look. Who knows, I might be able to benefit from it, and enter the inner region to take a look. A portion of the people chose to continue to follow because of greed. Of course, there were also wise people who decisively chose to turn around and leave. Qin Feiyang noticed the movement behind him and stopped. He turned around and saw that almost half of the people and beasts had chosen to continue to follow. Although this is your freedom, but I sincerely advise you not to follow us anymore. Because the danger we're going to face next is something that even we do not know about. If you follow us, you may not be able to get anything in the end. Instead, it will be the same as the last time in the Yinma land. All the people and beasts who followed us will lose their lives in the end. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. You've really been to the Yinma land? Hearing this, everyone stopped and looked at Qin Feiyang in bewilderment. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and then said, if you have the confidence to face the battle of the sovereign divine weapons, then you can continue to follow us. What? Are you hinting that there will be a battle of the sovereign divine weapons in the future? Everyone was shocked. I don't know either, but it's possible. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The group of people lowered their heads in silence, their eyes filled with fear. If it was a normal battle, they would not be afraid. After all, those who dared to step into the central region had a certain level of strength and confidence. But a battle of the sovereign divine weapons, even if it was just the shockwaves, was not something they could withstand. That's all I have to say. Think about it yourselves. After Qin Feiyang said that, he turned back and led Yin Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf deeper into the central region. Soon, they disappeared from the sight of the group. Forget it, I'd better not go. My life is more important. Since you've said so, I won't go either. If there really is a battle of the sovereign divine weapons, we won't even have time to escape. But what if they're just scaring us? Maybe they know that there's a treasure somewhere in the region and don't want us to get involved. That's why they don't want us to go. It can't be. What can't be? Haven't there been a lot of treasures in the region over the years? Then I won't go either. With Qin Feiyang and the others around, even if there's a treasure, do you think we have a share? At last, another half of the people turned around and left the central region. The remaining half of the people were basically hoping for a fluke. Qin Feiyang noticed this and did not say anything more. Anyway, he had already advised them. They were the ones who did not listen. Even if they died in there, they had only themselves to blame and no one else. As the days passed, the gravity became more and more terrifying. On the 10th day, the white-eyed wolf was so tired that he could not walk. His limbs were weak, and he felt like he was carrying a few mountains on his back. He could not even straighten his back. Can you do it? If not, I'll carry you. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf with disdain. Who said I can't do it? The white-eyed wolf was provoked. He gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. In fact, not to mention the white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyang was also extremely tired. Fortunately, his cultivation level was higher than the white-eyed wolf's. Otherwise he would definitely be in the same state as the white-eyed wolf. Even Yin Zhongtian was sweating profusely on his forehead. The white-eyed wolf asked breathlessly, Little Yin, where are we now? Little Yin? Yin Zhongtian was stunned. He turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and asked suspiciously, Are you talking to me? Nonsense. Besides little Qin Zi, is there anyone else here? The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Yin Zhongtian was stunned. It calls the people around it that way. You'll get used to it. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right then. Yin Zhongtian smiled helplessly as he looked around and said, We should be about 1/10 of the way there. What's that? The white-eyed wolf froze in place. 10 whole days and only 1/10 of the way there? Wouldn't it take another 90 days to reach the inner reaches? You can't calculate it like that. Because as we get closer, the gravity will become stronger and our speed will naturally become slower and slower. So the rest of the journey will take at least 2 to 3 years. Because the last time I reached the inner reaches, it took me an entire 3 years. Actually, the distance in a straight line is not that far, but the gravity is just too terrifying. making it difficult for us to move an inch. Yun Zhongtian explained as he sighed deeply. Both of his legs were already aching unbearably. Chapter 35-22. 2 to 3 years? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. This was too exaggerated. One must know. This wasn't outside. If it was outside, 2 to 3 years would pass in the blink of an eye. But here, the gravity was everywhere, and would continue to rise. Staying in such an environment for 2 to 3 years was equivalent to suffering every day. Who could bear it? Although it's a little painful and boring, it's also a kind of training for the mind. Yin Zhongtian smiled. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. My mind is already 1 in a million. I don't need such training. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. When Qin Feiyang and Yin Zhongtian heard this, they couldn't help but roll their eyes. Looking at the people behind them, most of them were already lying down and had no choice but to turn around and return. Only 12 people continued to follow. Without exception, they were all sovereigns, but the exhaustion on their faces couldn't be concealed. Brother Qin, Wolf King, the two of you are amazing. The 12 people walked over with difficulty and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf in admiration. Don't laugh at me. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. In all honesty, I'm not laughing at you. Take a look at the people who were following us earlier. Even the perfect Dominator realm cultivators and ferocious beasts were unable to withstand our attacks, and were forced to retreat one after another. On the other hand, you are only a great accomplishment Dominator, yet you were able to persist until now. A black-bearded old man laughed hoarsely. Of course. If I didn't have some ability, would I dare to step into this heavy region? The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. Yes, yes, yes. The black-bearded old man nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Brother Qin, why don't we travel together? We can take care of each other. Didn't I tell you not to follow? Qin Feiyang frowned. The black-bearded old man hurriedly said, We are not following you. We have long wanted to go deeper to take a look, but we have never had the courage. Now that we have seen Brother Qin, we have inexplicably gained some courage. Ugh! Qin Feiyang looked at the black-bearded old man in astonishment. His ability to flatter others was really top-notch. All right, as long as you don't regret it. Furthermore, you all have also seen it. Even I am powerless to protect myself. At that time, I will definitely not be able to help you all should we encounter danger. Qin Feiyang said. No regrets, no regrets. We don't need your help. On the contrary, we will help you. The 12 of them were overjoyed. They had finally merged into this small team. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. Why was she so stubborn? The black-bearded old man shouted. Brothers, help Brother Wolf King. All right. 2 middle-aged men stepped forward and supported the white-eyed wolf as they continued to walk deeper into the forest. I even need someone to help me walk. How embarrassing. The white-eyed wolf was furious. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. For the white-eyed wolf, it was indeed quite frustrating. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. The terrifying gravity shrouded the entire world, not giving Qin Feiyang and the others any chance to breathe. Even Qin Feiyang had reached his limit. His feet seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, and it was difficult for him to move. Brother Qin, let us help you. 2 middle-aged men stepped forward. No need. You guys are also working hard. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. We can still hold on. The 2 middle-aged men said nothing and supported Qin Feiyang on each side as they continued to move forward. Huh? You also need someone to help you? The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang playfully. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Looking at the black desert in front of him, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. The danger of the heavy region was far beyond his imagination. In such a situation, if a ferocious beast or a supreme expert who had grasped the ultimate profoundness were to appear and block their path, they would be in deep trouble. It had been more than a month since they entered the heavy region. Outside, the eastern continent, western continent, northern continent, and southern continent didn't fall into peace. Just as Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf expected, the news of the Yin family's departure slowly spread across the continents, causing a huge uproar. They didn't expect that the dignified second family of the southern continent would actually submit to Qin Feiyang. They were even more afraid of Qin Feiyang. First, the Blood Hall submitted to him, and now the Yin family submitted to him. Now Qin Feiyang's strength was getting more and more terrifying. Of course, when the Demonic Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance received the news, they were naturally secretly delighted. Because the stronger Qin Feiyang was, the better it would be for them. After all, whether it was the Demonic Hall or the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they were all grasshoppers on the same rope as Qin Feiyang. They were bound together for good or ill. Also on this morning, Cloud Han City. A young man in a white robe appeared outside Cloud Han City. He looked at Cloud Han City in front of him without moving, and there was an extremely complicated expression on his face. Anger, murderous intent, grief, longing. There was even a layer of mist in her eyes. I'm back. After a long time, the young man in white finally took a step forward and walked towards the city gate of Cloud Han City. I really don't understand why the Yin family would do such a thing. Yeah, how surprising. There were many people coming and going in groups of 2s and 3s as they whispered to each other. When the young man in white heard that, he frowned slightly and looked at the passers-by with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. I say, did the Yin family receive some benefits from Qin Feiyang? Aren't they afraid of being laughed at? Another 2 burly men walked over and kept talking. Qin Feiyang? The young man in white raised his eyebrows and took a step forward to stand in front of the 2 burly men. The 2 burly men were stunned. They looked up at the young man in white and asked, "What are you doing?" The young man in white cupped his hands and said, "Brothers, what do you mean by the Yin family and Qin Feiyang? Don't you know?" The 2 burly men were stunned. "I just came out of the forbidden area." The young man in white smiled. "I see." The 2 burly men nodded and sighed. "You don't know. More than a month ago, the Yin family suddenly migrated. Not a single one of them was left behind. They all ran away with Qin Feiyang. Migrated." The smile on the young man in white's face disappeared immediately. "That's right. We don't know what's going on either. However, we heard from the He family that the Yin family and Qin Feiyang are in cahoots and have betrayed the southern continent." The 2 burly men said, "Nonsense. How could the Yin family betray the southern continent?" The young man in white shouted immediately, his face full of anger. "It's not us who said it. It's the He family who said it." The 2 burly men glared at the young man in white and turned to leave. "Qin Feiyang," the young man in white muttered. He clenched his fists and walked toward the city gate with a gloomy face. One of the 2 burly men who had walked a distance suddenly stopped and turned to look at the back of the young man in white. "What's wrong?" His companion looked at him suspiciously. "Why do I feel that this person looks familiar?" The burly man muttered. "Familiar?" His companion looked at the young man in white again and shook his head. "I don't think he looks familiar. That's probably an illusion." The burly man smiled. The 2 burly men turned back and continued to talk about the Yin family as they walked toward the mountains. The young man in white, he lowered his head and remained silent along the way. His ears were filled with the discussion between the Yin family and Qin Feiyang. Why did it become like this? The young man in white muttered. When he reached the city gate, he realized that the guards at the city gate were also from the He family. His eyes flashed coldly. Boom! A terrifying aura exploded. The young man in white landed in front of the guards at the city gate. He grabbed one of the guards by the neck and shouted, "Who's living in the inner city now? Who are you? How dare you behave atrociously in the He family's territory?" The sudden change made the 4 guards a little confused. When they came back to their senses, they immediately shouted at the young man in white. The people entering and leaving the city also stopped and looked at the young man in white suspiciously. This person is crazy. How dare he cause trouble in Cloud Han City? Answer my question. Who's living in the inner city now? The young man in white said word by word. His eyes were extremely cold. The 4 guards couldn't help but show fear, especially the guard whose neck was grabbed by the young man in white. He replied fearfully, "It's Lord He Chengjian." He Chengjian. The young man in white lowered his head and seemed to be lost in his memories. Suddenly, his eyes flashed coldly and he said in a deep voice, "He's He Chunggong's third brother, He Chungjian?" "That's right." The guard nodded. "Preposterous. Is the land of my Yin family something that He Chungjian can touch?" The young man in white shouted and crushed the guard's neck. He soared into the sky like a ray of divine light and went straight to the inner city at the center of the city. "Brother, are you okay?" The other 3 guards hurriedly ran to the guard and asked with concern. The guard shouted, "It's just a broken neck. He's not dead yet. Quickly inform Lord He Chungjian that a remnant of the Yun family has appeared." The other 3 guards nodded and immediately took out a voice transmission divine stone. Inner city. Inside a large hall, a middle-aged man was sitting on a throne with a teacup in his hand. There were 2 young women in front and behind him. One was massaging his legs, and the other was massaging his shoulders. It was extremely comfortable. This is the Yun family's territory. It's quite comfortable to live in. The middle-aged man laughed as he drank tea. "Comfortable? Why didn't we notice? It doesn't feel any different from 7-Star City." The 2 women giggled when they heard that. "Both of you don't understand. Even though the Yin family was inferior to our He family in the past, it's still a sworn enemy of our He family no matter what. In the past, the Yin family wouldn't even allow us to enter Cloudhan City, let alone step foot into the inner city and drink tea in their territory. So I feel especially accomplished and satisfied now." The middle-aged man smiled. "Right." The 2 women thought seriously for a moment and nodded. "My lord." Suddenly, a loud shout resounded from outside, and then a middle-aged man in armor ran in hastily. The middle-aged man gazed at the man and spoke angrily. "You're the commander of the guards of the city at any rate. Why are you so impatient? Not to mention that the entire southern continent belongs to my He family now. What's there to make you so anxious?" End of this chapter. Chapter 35-23. Sir, please forgive us. However, there's indeed a major matter. There are still remnants of the Yin family in the southern continent. The guard commander said in a deep voice. "Remnants?" He Chungjian frowned. "That's right. This person is charging towards the inner city, and even injured one of our guards." The guard commander nodded. "Preposterous. He actually dares to injure a guard of our He family? He's simply courting death. Let's go. Let's go out and see who's so daring." He Chungjian put down his teacup and walked out of the hall. The guard commander and the 2 women followed closely behind. Boom! Just as the 4 of them walked out of the main hall, a terrifying aura descended upon the sky above the inner city without any concealment. It was the young man in white. He really charged into the inner city. He Chungjian was stunned. He raised his head and sized up the young man in white. His eyes flickered with a cold light. At the same time, the other people in the inner city also walked out and looked at the young man in white with a trace of killing intent on their faces. The young man in white also scanned the inner city below. Looking at the unfamiliar faces, the killing intent emitted from his body became more and more terrifying. "Who's there? How dare you behave atrociously in our He family's territory?" Accompanied by a furious roar, a group of guards soared into the air and stared at the young man in white. "He family's territory?" The young man in white murmured. He suddenly looked at the group of guards. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, and the group of guards couldn't help but tremble. An unsuppressible fear emerged in their hearts. Just a gaze was enough to make them feel so terrified. Just what cultivation was this person at? Who gave you the courage to say that the Yin family's territory is your He family's territory? The young man in white took a step forward, and his aura surged like a torrent. With a buzz, a giant barrier appeared in the sky above the inner city. This was the protective barrier of the inner city. The young man in white sneered and pointed at the sky. A burst of space-time energy blasted towards the giant barrier like a storm. Accompanied by a loud bang, the barrier shattered on the spot. What? This barrier was personally set up by Lord He Chungjian. The people in the inner city were extremely shocked. The enchantment here had originally been set up by Yun Zhongtian, but before he left, Yun Zhongtian had removed the enchantment. Hence, When He Chengjian was stationed in the Cloud Han City, he had personally set up another enchantment. He Chengjian was also a paragon sovereign. Although he hadn't comprehended the ultimate profundity, with his status and position, no one dared to cause trouble. This is space-time energy. Retreat. At the same time that the barrier shattered, the group of guards' faces changed, and they hurriedly retreated. However, the white-clothed youth did not intend to let them go. The space-time energy was like a tide, covering the sky and covering the earth, instantly drowning the group of He clan guards. Ah! Screams immediately resounded in all directions. The group of guards, without exception, had their blood splattered across the sky. So strong. The guard commander's pupils shrank. Even though these guards weren't strong, they were still half-step sovereigns. Yet they were killed just like that. He Chengjian stared at the white-robed young man, his fists clenched tightly and his gaze dark. Not only did he brazenly shatter the enchantment he had set up, but he also killed the He clan guards in front of him. He didn't take him seriously at all. Go kill him. He Chengjian looked at the guard commander and shouted. The guard commander panicked and said, My lord, he has grasped the space-time laws. How can I be his match? This guard commander was also a paragon sovereign, but he hadn't grasped the ultimate profundity, so he didn't have any confidence in facing the white-clothed youth. Useless trash. If you don't go, do you want me to do it myself? He Chengjian said angrily. I don't dare. The guard commander hurriedly shook his head, and could only bite the bullet and fly up. He looked at the white-clothed youth and said in a deep voice, No matter who you are, I have to advise you to scram immediately. The ones who should scram are all of you. The white-clothed youth's killing intent surged. He took a step forward, and instantly landed in front of the guard commander. Such fast speed. This is a supreme-grade heaven-defying auxiliary divine technique. The guard commander's face changed as he quickly raised his hand to counterattack. Humph! The white-clothed youth sneered and slapped his palm. The space-time energy surged, and the guard commander immediately screamed. His arm was torn open, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. You're courting death. This made the guard commander furious. A set of armor suddenly appeared on his body, and a long spear appeared in his hand. These were both supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts. The long spear was as black as ink and had a cold luster. The guard commander grabbed the long spear, and like a flash of light, he went straight for the white-clothed youth's glabella. The white-clothed youth looked at the long spear with disdain. He grabbed at the void, and the void in front of him collapsed, turning into pieces of ice crystals that flashed with dazzling divine light. This is space-time laws, the ultimate profundity. The guard commander was dumbfounded. That's right. This was the ultimate profundity. Who was this person? He actually grasped the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. He had never heard of such a person in the Yun clan before. When he came back to his senses, he immediately turned around and ran. The white-clothed youth sneered. The ice crystals that filled the sky turned into a giant hand that covered the sky. It grabbed the guard commander and clenched his fist. With a shrill scream, the guard commander died on the spot. Space-time laws, the ultimate profundity. He Chengjian's eyes were filled with shock. One must know, there were hundreds of thousands of people in the He clan, but only the old ancestor had grasped the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. This person, who looked so young, actually had such strength. The most important thing was that he had never seen this person in the He clan before. No, that look, it seems a little familiar. Suddenly, He Chengjian looked at the white-clothed youth's eyes, his face full of surprise. At the same time, the other people in the He clan in the inner city also stared at the white-clothed youth in shock. At such a young age, he had grasped the ultimate profundity of the space-time laws. Could it be that he wasn't Qin Feiyang's companion? Because in the younger generation of the Sky Cloud realm, only the people around Qin Feiyang could possibly grasp the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. But that wasn't right. This person clearly claimed to be from the Yun clan. The white-clothed youth looked down at He Chengjian and sneered. He Chengjian, you really don't remember me? And He Chengjian was surprised. Who the hell was he? This look. The white-clothed youth took a step forward and walked towards He Chengjian step by step. His long black hair fluttered behind him, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. He was like a god descending. Wait! Suddenly, a young man appeared in He Chengjian's mind. This young man, 14 or 15 years old, was wearing a brocade robe, gentle and elegant, bright and handsome. When the eyes of this young man coincided with the eyes of the white-clothed youth in front of him, He Chengjian felt as if he was struck by lightning. He Chengjian raised his head and looked at the white-clothed youth. His face was full of disbelief as he roared, "You are Yun Zitao." "No, Yun Zitao is dead, and now the one who is alive in this world, vowing to avenge his mother, is Yun Ziang." The white-clothed youth said, his eyes as cold as death. That's right. This person was Yun Ziang, who had been missing for a long time. Yun Ziang, Yun Zitao. You're not dead. He Chengjian's eyes trembled. That's right. I'm not dead. I'm here to take your He family's life. The white-robed young man laughed sinisterly. The surrounding space collapsed and turned into ice fragments that surged from all directions. They gathered together and gradually condensed into a heaven-splitting divine sword. He Chengjian's body and mind trembled as he turned and fled. The other He family members were the same, their faces full of fear. Who is Yun Zitao? Someone asked his companion while running for his life. Yun Zitao is the eldest son of Yun Guanghui. To get to the bottom of this matter, we have to start from many years ago. But before he could finish speaking, the heaven-splitting divine sword slashed down, its sharp edge sweeping in all directions. The entire inner city was instantly reduced to ashes with a loud bang. A large number of the He family members in the inner city were killed or injured. He Chengjian was also covered in wounds, his face full of fear. Go! Suddenly, an old man rushed to He Chengjian's side, his entire body dripping with blood. He grabbed He Chengjian and flew away without looking back. Despair tremble! Yun Ziang laughed, and the heaven-splitting divine sword once again slashed down on the inner city below. Except for the old man and He Chengjian, everyone was killed. What happened in the inner city? What a terrifying fluctuation. Not good, the fluctuation is spreading out, everyone run. The people in the 4 major districts of Yunnan City were frantically running for their lives. Buildings were constantly collapsing, like a scene of doomsday. When Yun Ziang saw this, he waved his hand, and the space-time power surged in all directions, condensing a huge boundary, sealing the battle fluctuations in the inner city. Although his killing intent was aroused at this moment, he still maintained his rationality, not wanting to hurt innocent people. When the old man saw this, he roared, "Quickly send a message to the family head." He Chengjian immediately took out the voice transmission divine stone. Buzz! A shadow appeared. This was also a middle-aged man, somewhat similar to He Chengjian and He Chenggang. This person was He Chengxiang. He Chenggang had died, and He Chengxiang had inherited the position of the family head. Third brother, what's the situation? Looking at He Chengjian and the old man's miserable appearance, He Chengxiang's expression changed, and he hurriedly asked, "Second brother, Yun Zitao is still alive," He Chengjian roared. However, before he finished speaking, Yun Ziang appeared behind the old man and He Chengjian. In an instant, the space-time power surged, and He Chengjian and the old man screamed on the spot, their blood staining the sky. "Second brother!" He Chengxiang roared, and the shadow quickly dissipated. He Chengxiang, He Zhongtian, don't worry, it will be your turn soon. Yun Ziang murmured, stepped into the sky, and stood on the boundary. He glanced at the shattered inner city, then turned and left without looking back. The shockwaves of the battle were sealed in the inner city, and the people in the 4 districts didn't escape anymore. Those who were a little braver gradually approached the inner city, and when they saw the raised inner city through the enchantment, they were immediately stunned. Who on earth was this young man? He actually destroyed the entire inner city in one fell swoop, killing everyone in the He family. Because of the boundary, the people in the 4 major districts did not hear He Chengjian's roar. Everyone was guessing if this young man in white was Qin Feiyang's companion. Chapter 35-24. 7-Star City. Yun Zitao. A middle-aged man stood in a large hall, his face full of disbelief. This person was He Qingxiang. How was this possible? Didn't Yun Zitao already die back then? Why was he still alive? Even if he was still alive, he couldn't be so strong. One had to know. He Qingjian wasn't the only one guarding Cloud Han City. There were many Dominator Realm clansmen. With so many people they couldn't take down Yun Zitao? It seemed like he couldn't be careless. Swoosh. He Qingxiang turned into a stream of light and rushed out of the hall, heading straight for the back mountain. Very soon, a courtyard appeared in his line of sight. He Qingxiang landed in front of the courtyard and looked at the wooden building inside. Old ancestor, I have an urgent matter to report to you. He Zhongtian walked out of the wooden building. Although more than a month had passed, he hadn't reconstructed his physical body because the He family's time array only lasted 500 years in a day. 1 month was more than 30 days, which was only about 10,000 years. For a perfected dominator, it was impossible to reconstruct their physical body in 10,000 years. What's wrong? He Zhongtian looked at He Qingxiang suspiciously. He Qingxiang said in a deep voice, just now, third brother sent a message saying that Yun Zitao appeared in Cloud Han City. Yun Zitao. He Zhongtian was stunned. He Qingxiang said, Yun Guanghui's eldest son. Isn't he dead? He Zhongtian was surprised. Yes. But now, he has indeed appeared in Cloud Han City. Third brother has already been killed by him. He Qingxiang said angrily. What? He Zhongtian's eyes widened in anger. When third brother sent a message to me, I saw him appear behind third brother and used the space-time law to kill third brother. He Qingxiang clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. Space-time law Yun Zitao, He Zhongtian muttered. How could this be? A person who had been dead for many years had appeared again, and his strength was so strong. To be able to kill He Qingjian and all the He family clansmen in Cloud Han City, his cultivation had definitely reached the perfected dominator realm. Boom. Suddenly, in the sky, a spatial crack appeared, accompanied by a monstrous killing intent. A blood-stained white-robed youth walked out. It was Yun Ziang. The blood on his body naturally did not belong to him. It belonged to He Qingxiang and the old man. He Zhongtian and He Qingxiang immediately raised their heads to take a look, and their pupils instantly shrank. This person's cultivation was indeed at the peak sovereign realm. Looking at Yun Ziang's eyes, it was exactly the same as the Yun Zitao they remembered. He Zhongtian, He Qingxiang, come out and die. Yun Ziang stood in the air, sweeping his gaze over the He clan's land as he shouted, Who is it? How dare you come to my He family to cause trouble? A group of guards rushed into the sky and glared at Yun Ziang. How dare you kill someone from the He clan? Yun Ziang smiled coldly. He raised his hand and slapped the air. The void immediately collapsed, turning into a torrent of ice crystals that blasted downward. A protective barrier appeared, emanating the power of death. The barrier was created by He Zhongtian using the law of death. Boom! Faced with the bombardment of the ice crystal torrent, the barrier immediately distorted. This is He Zhongtian, and He Qingxiang's pupil shrank. It was actually the supreme power of the law of space and time. The group of guards standing below the barrier was also shocked. They did not expect this young man to be a supreme power. Even a barrier formed by the power of death can't stop me. Yun Ziang roared angrily. All sorts of law of death appeared, and together with the torrent of ice crystals, they blasted toward the barrier. Crack. A crack appeared on the barrier. He Zhongtian's expression changed. He leaped out of the barrier and landed in front of Yun Ziang. He said in a low voice, Yun Ziang, I don't know what you've experienced over the years to make you so strong, but I advise you to leave immediately. I am no longer Yun Ziang. I am Yun Ziang, the Yun Ziang who wants to avenge my mother. Yun Ziang smiled coldly and sent a palm strike toward He Zhongtian. He Zhongtian's expression changed, and he hurriedly retreated back into the barrier. Although he was also a supreme power who had grasped the supreme power, he did not dare to fight with Yun Ziang without a physical body. So you've lost your physical body. This is really retribution. However, I will not show mercy because of this. Yun Ziang's gaze was extremely cold. All sorts of law of death once again blasted at the barrier, and a crack appeared. You don't know the current situation at all. If you don't leave now, even a god won't be able to save you. He Zhongtian shouted. You should worry about yourself first. Yun Xiang smiled coldly. However, before Yun Xiang finished speaking, a murderous voice sounded from a courtyard at the back of the mountain. Who has the guts to come and disturb our cultivation? Yun Xiang lowered his head, and his eyes flashed with an intense cold light. I'm doing this for your own good. We can slowly resolve our grudges in the future. Leave now. He Zhongtian was extremely anxious. He actually did not want to let Yun Xiang go. However, he had no choice. The Yin family was now following Qin Feiyang. Even if he did not give the Yin family face, he had to give Qin Feiyang face. Qin Feiyang's anger was not something that he could bear. When Yun Xiang heard this, he furrowed his brows. What was going on? Although the situation in the southern mainland had changed drastically, not many people knew that the dragons were hiding in the He family. Yun Xiang did not know either. Blood Dragon Blade, kill him. The voice sounded again. It was the Blood Dragon Prince. With a loud clang, the Blood Dragon Blade flew out of the courtyard and into the sky at lightning speed. That's a Dominator Divine Weapon. Yun Xiang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately opened a space-time teleportation channel. He Zhongtian transmitted his voice. Blood Dragon Blade, have mercy. He is the eldest son of Yin Guanghui. He used to be called Yin Zitao, but now he is called Yun Xiang. He might be related to Qin Feiyang. Hearing this, the Blood Dragon Blade hesitated. If he was related to Qin Feiyang, then he really could not kill him. Just as the Blood Dragon Blade was hesitating, Yun Xiang flew into the space-time teleportation channel and quickly disappeared. You run fast. The Blood Dragon Blade pretended to snort coldly and turned into a stream of light, disappearing from the courtyard below. What's going on? He Zhongtian frowned. Back then, he was still a little kid who was still wet behind the ears. Now he had grown to this extent. That was too fast. He Qingxiang flew to He Zhongtian's side and said with a frown, Old ancestor, this is a powerful enemy. Should we send someone to chase after him? He Zhongtian glanced at He Qingxiang and said angrily, Can you use your brain? Yun Zhongtian took the Dominator Divine Weapon, and my physical body has not been reconstructed. How are you going to chase after him? He Qingxiang's expression stiffened as he muttered. Then we don't care about the death of third brother and the clansman. He Zhongtian said in a deep voice. Wait until I reconstruct my physical body. Tell all the clansmen to be obedient during this period of time. Yes. He Qingxiang nodded. Southern continent. In the sky above a deep mountain, Yun Xiang stood against the wind, his head lowered and his brows furrowed. How could the He family have a Dominator Divine Weapon? Moreover, looking at He Zhongtian's attitude before, it seemed that he was deliberately hinting at him? That didn't make sense. He Zhongtian's reaction when he saw him, shouldn't it be to eliminate the roots? Why was he hinting at him? What had happened in the Sky Cloud realm all these years? Suddenly, he took out the sound transmission god stone. Not long after, a beautiful woman appeared. It was Yueqing. Big brother Yin. Yueqing looked at Yun Xiang with an excited expression. How have you been these years? Yun Xiang smiled slightly. He was like a different person from before. He was elegant, refined, and amiable. Pretty good. Yueqing nodded and asked with concern. What about you? Where are you now? Where have you been all these years? Every time meow meow, and I sent you a message, you didn't respond to us. I'm cultivating in seclusion. Yun Xiang said vaguely and said with a smile. Where are you now? I'll go and see you. I'm in the western continent. I'll give you the coordinates. Come over. Yueqing smiled slightly, as if she had seen a relative. Western continent. A huge city, like an ancient giant beast, stood on the ground. In one part of the city, there was a bustling restaurant. This was the Tianyue building. It was also the headquarters of the Tianyue building in the western continent. Underground in a secret room, Yueqing and Yun Xiang sat opposite each other. On the tea table in the middle, there was a pot of fragrant tea. Big brother Yin, you don't know how worried we were about you all these years. You're really, Even if you're cultivating in seclusion, you should let us know that you're safe. Yueqing said as she looked at Yin Xiang unhappily while brewing tea. I'm sorry. I neglected it. I sincerely apologize to you. Yin Xiang roared. Alright, I'll forgive you since your attitude is alright. Yueqing smiled gently and poured a cup of tea. She handed it to Yin Xiang and asked, Where have you been cultivating in seclusion all these years? I think your cultivation is a little unfathomable. Of course I have to choose a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. Yin Xiang chuckled. As for his cultivation, he hit it again. It seemed to be between the imperishable realm and the dominator realm. It seemed he didn't want to dwell on the issue of cultivation. He looked around and asked, Where's Miao Miao? She's in the Eastern Continent. She's in charge of the Tianyue building in the Eastern Continent. I'm in charge of the Tianyue building in the Western Continent. Yueqing smiled. I see. Yin Xiang nodded in realization and said with a smile, I really didn't expect the Tianyue Tower to develop so quickly. Now, the Tianyue Tower in the Eastern and Western continents can be considered a force that cannot be ignored. It's all thanks to Qin Dage. If it weren't for his help, we wouldn't be where we are today. Yueqing shook her head. Is that so? It seems that Qin Feiyang is really capable. Yin Xiang smiled. That's for sure. A lot of things have happened these years. The structure of the Sky Cloud realm has also changed a lot. But without exception, almost all of them have something to do with Qin Dage. Yueqing smiled and said with respect. What about Qin Feiyang now? Yin Xiang asked. I don't know. Qin Dage comes and goes without a trace. No one knows where he is. Yueqing smiled wryly. Yin Xiang shook his head and said with a smile. I happen to have something to ask him. Can you help me contact him? Of course. Yueqing nodded and immediately took out the divine voice transmitting stone. Chapter 35-25. Looking at the divine voice stone in Yueqing's hand, Yin Xiang's eyes flickered. However, after waiting for a while, there was no response from Qin Feiyang. Yueqing could not help but smile bitterly. She looked at Yin Xiang and said, It seems that we can't contact him. Why can't we contact him? Yin Xiang was suspicious. I'm used to it. Because it's not just you. Qin Feiyang is the same. Unless he appears on his own initiative, it's very difficult to contact him. Yueqing smiled helplessly. Yin Xiang could not help but smile bitterly. Have you heard about the Yin family in the southern continent? Yes. Now everyone in the 4 continents is talking about it. Yueqing nodded. Yin Xiang asked. Then do you know why the Yin family left with Qin Feiyang? I really don't know. Qin Dage won't tell me what he does. However, according to my personal guess, it should be related to the dragons. Yueqing said. Dragons? Yin Xiang was stunned. Yes. You don't know, but a mysterious force has appeared recently. This force is the dragons. The dragons are very powerful. Even the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance have to bow to them. And this dragon seems to have a deep hatred for Qin Dage. They have been fighting for a long time, but I heard that Qin Dage has the upper hand every time. Yueqing smiled. Are they that strong? Yin Xiang was surprised. Even the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance had to bow to them. This was too ridiculous. Yes, not to mention the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. Even Qin Feiyang is extremely wary of this dragons. He even warned me to never let the dragons know that I'm related to him in the future. Otherwise, it would bring disaster upon me. Big brother Yin, you're not an outsider, so I don't need to guard against you. However, you must keep this a secret, and don't provoke the dragons. I heard from Qin Dage that these dragons' princesses and princes all have sovereign divine weapons. Yueqing said in a deep voice. Everyone will have a sovereign weapon. Yin Xiang was shocked. If that was the case, then the Dominator divine weapon that appeared in the He clan was most likely the Dominator divine weapon of the dragons. What kind of power was this? How could it be so terrifying? Yueqing spoke in a low voice. I won't hide it from you. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance already has a princess of the dragons. Yin Xiang was shocked and asked. What is she doing in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? I don't know either. In any case, I can't afford to offend him. A while ago, I was even brought in for questioning. They asked me what my relationship with Qin Dage was. Fortunately, the Alliance leader and the others helped me deal with it. Otherwise, you might not even be able to see me. Yueqing shook her head. Then it seems that Qin Feiyang is avoiding the pursuit of the dragons. Yin Ziang guessed. It should be. Although Qin Dage has the upper hand every time they fight, the gap is still right in front of them. If they fight head-on, Qin Dage is definitely not their match. Yueqing nodded, but she believed that sooner or later, the dragons would be completely defeated by Qin Feiyang. Yun family. Dragons. Qin Feiyang. Yin Ziang pondered. From the current situation, the Yun family should have taken the initiative to follow Qin Feiyang in order to protect themselves. In other words, the He family now had the support of the dragons. However, He Zhongtian's attitude left him perplexed. They were supposed to be life and death enemies, but he was secretly helping him. If there was nothing wrong with He Zhongtian's head, there must be a secret hidden behind this. Yueqing took a sip of tea and looked at Yin Ziang. Brother Yin, you're not leaving again this time, right? Yes. Yin Ziang nodded. You're leaving again? Yueqing immediately pouted, her expression filled with displeasure. Yes. I just came back to see you and ask Qin Feiyang some questions. But now that Qin Feiyang has disappeared, there's no need for me to stay any longer. Yin Ziang smiled. Why are all of you so busy? Yueqing said unhappily. He's a man. His ambition is to travel far. Yin Ziang chuckled and asked, do you know where Qin Feiyang might be now? This. Yueqing pondered for a while and her eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Yin Ziang and said, he might have gone to the 4 forbidden areas, but I'm not sure if he went there or which forbidden area he went to. The 4 forbidden areas. Yin Ziang lowered his head and pondered. Buzz. Suddenly, the divine sound transmission stone rang. Yueqing took out the divine sound transmission stone, and a middle-aged fatso appeared. Looking at the middle-aged fatso, Yueqing immediately stood up and bowed. Greetings, Senior Wang Dafu. That's right. This person was the house master of the rich and noble house, who was also the sworn brother of the deputy leader, Wang Dafu. Xiaoqing, how have you been? Wang Dafu chuckled. Pretty good. Yueqing nodded. After the destruction of the Blood Hall, Wang Dafu did not enter the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, but continued to stay in the rich and noble house. Although it was also a restaurant like the Tianyue house, there was no conflict between the two. Not only was there no conflict, Wang Dafu also admired Yueqing and felt that she was very business-minded. He took care of her as if she was his junior. The reason why the Tianyue house was able to stabilize in the Western continent so quickly was because of Wang Dafu's care. Have you received the news? Wang Dafu asked. What news? Yueqing was suspicious. News about Qin Feiyang. Wang Dafu said. Yin Ziang, who was sitting opposite, immediately looked up at Wang Dafu. But Wang Dafu did not notice him. Yueqing was also slightly taken aback and asked, what news? Wang Dafu said, just now when I was in the rich and noble house, I heard that a few guests were discussing that Qin Feiyang, Yin Zhongtian, and White-Eyed Wolf had gone to the heavy region. The heavy region? Yueqing was stunned and a wry smile appeared on her face. It was really a coincidence that she had guessed it. She asked, are you sure? I should be sure. Because according to the staff, those guests had just come out of the heavy region. It's just that I don't know what this kid is doing in the heavy region. So I want to ask you. After all, you are all young people, and you gather more often. Wang Dafu said. Yueqing shook her head and said, if you don't tell me now, I don't even know that they have gone to the heavy region. How would I know anything else? Okay, then I won't disturb you. If you have time, come drink tea with me and chat with me. Wang Dafu smiled. Okay. Yueqing nodded. When Wang Dafu's shadow dissipated, Yueqing put away the voice transmission stone and looked at Yin Ziang with a smile. There's news, the heavy region. This guy is really skilled and bold. Yin Ziang shook his head with a smile. Isn't that so? He has just gone to the Een Demon Land, and now he has entered the heavy region. I feel that these forbidden areas are like his back garden in Qin Dage's eyes. Yueqing was helpless. Yin Xiang smiled and asked, "Who is that person just now?" "His name is Wang Dafu, the sworn brother of the deputy chief. He is also Qin Dage's elder. He is a good person." Yueqing smiled. "I see." Yin Xiang nodded and drank the last sip of tea in the cup. He stood up and smiled. "Then I will leave first." "So fast?" Yueqing was stunned. "Don't worry, I will be back soon." Yin Xiang rubbed Yueqing's head. His face was full of love, as if he was looking at his own sister. Then he opened a space-time transmission channel. "Then be careful," Yueqing warned. "You too." Yin Xiang nodded and also reminded her. Then he turned and stepped into the space-time transmission channel. "Busy people." Yueqing shook her head. She tidied up the tea set and teapot, then left the secret room, and went out to do her work. The heavy region. Yun Xiang descended above the entrance, and looked at the black desert in front of him. Not only Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, but even the old ancestor had followed him to the heavy region. It seemed that Qin Feiyang had a purpose for this trip. But what was the purpose? Would the old ancestor be in danger if she followed him? Suddenly, Yin Xiang looked down at the entrance. There were many people sitting cross-legged on the mountain cultivating. He could see the cultivation of these people at a glance. Swish! As he took a step forward, he landed in front of a middle-aged man with a high-level dominator cultivation. And the middle-aged man sensed the arrival of a strange aura and couldn't help but open his eyes. Looking at Yin Xiang, he asked suspiciously, "You are?" Yin Xiang smiled and said, "Senior, let me ask around. Did Qin Feiyang enter the heavy region?" "Yes." Seeing that Yin Xiang's attitude was not bad, the middle-aged man nodded and smiled, then said, "He entered the heavy region more than a month ago, accompanied by the golden-winged wolf king and the old ancestor of the Yin family, Yin Zhongtian." "Then why did they enter the heavy region?" Yin Xiang was suspicious. "I don't know, but I heard that they are going to the inner region. At that time, many people followed them, wanting to take advantage of them. But later, most of them returned. It is said that they couldn't withstand the gravity of the central region." The middle-aged man said. "The inner region?" Yin Xiang frowned and muttered. "This guy is crazy. He actually wants to go to the inner region. Isn't that so?" Although his ability is not small, the gravity of the inner region is something that even a peak sovereign can't withstand, let alone a peak sovereign. Hearing Yin Xiang's muttering, the middle-aged man shook his head and said, as if he was mocking Qin Feiyang for overestimating his own strength, "What? He has stepped into the peak sovereign realm." Yin Xiang was shocked. Yes, putting everything else aside, his cultivation speed is indeed amazing. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. When one reached the sovereign realm, others would need millions, or even tens of millions of years to break through a small realm. But this person was like sitting on a rocket. Hearing this, Yin Xiang was silent for a while. His eyes flickered slightly as he looked at the middle-aged man, cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Many thanks." "It's nothing." The middle-aged man waved his hand. Yin Xiang smiled and stepped forward, quickly disappearing into the depths of the heavy region. There were some things he had to clarify, especially the current Yin family. He couldn't ignore it. Chapter 35-27. In the central region, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were really reaching their limits. If it weren't for the black-bearded old man and the others' help, they would probably have to turn back. They had just arrived, and the gravity was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the gravity in the inner region would be. "Little Qinzi, didn't you say that this was an opportunity to train? Come. Now let me see how you're going to train." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. With Qin Feiyang losing face with him, he finally felt better. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. He was really not in the mood to bicker with the white-eyed wolf now. To be honest, in this situation, even with the help of Yin Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others, he did not dare to step into the inner region. The most important thing was, if he encountered danger, Even if he had a lot of skills, he would not even have the strength to resist. Therefore, he could not go on like this. He had to find a way to overcome this gravity. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the two burly men who were supporting him and said with a smile, "Brothers, let go of me first." "What are you going to do?" The two men were suspicious. Qin Feiyang glanced at the desert in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Let go of me first. I'll try to see if there's a way to dispel this gravity." "Dispel?" The two men were slightly taken aback and hurriedly said, "Brother Qin, we know you're powerful, but this gravity is really impossible to deal with. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stayed in the outer region, let alone dispel it. Let's try. In this state, if we encounter danger, the white-eyed wolf and I will only be a burden to you." Qin Feiyang sighed. "Okay." The two men looked at each other and smiled helplessly, then let go of Qin Feiyang. Just as the two men let go, Qin Feiyang immediately felt as if a mountain was pressing down on his head. He immediately lay on the ground motionless, facing a suffocating situation. So scary. Qin Feiyang was shocked and hurriedly released his divine power. But the appearance of divine power did not reduce the gravity in the slightest. Boom! The power of law roared out again. But it was useless. This gravity seemed to be able to ignore everything. "I don't believe it." Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and activated the battle character art with a thought. However, the appearance of the armor did not affect the gravity at all. "Brother Qin, don't waste your energy. It doesn't matter if it's a divine technique, a divine artifact, divine power, or the power of laws. There are countless sceneries in the heavy realm, but so far, no one has found a way to resist this gravity," the black-bearded old man advised. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the black-bearded old man. Even raising his head required all of his strength. The veins on his forehead bulged. When Qin Feiyang's gaze met the black-bearded old man's, the black-bearded old man saw a pair of eyes that were different from ordinary people's. There was an unyielding look in his eyes. Seeing this, the black-bearded old man no longer persuaded. Instead, he was looking forward to it. Perhaps this man could create another miracle. Qin Feiyang used his hands to support himself on the ground. He used all his strength to try and stand up, but the gravity firmly pressed down on him. In just a moment, his four limbs were incomparably sore and his physical strength was severely overdrawn. A wave of exhaustion washed over him. "It seems that this time, I'm really in trouble," the white-eyed wolf murmured. It was the first time he saw Qin Feiyang so helpless. "Let me help you." Suddenly, a voice rang in Qin Feiyang's mind. It was the horsetail whisk. As a sovereign weapon, although it would also be affected by gravity, it would be much better because the sovereign weapon's endurance was strong. "No need." Qin Feiyang refused without hesitation. If he had to rely on the sovereign weapon for everything, then what was the point of working hard? Human. In difficult and desperate situations, he had to constantly strengthen himself. No matter how strong the sovereign weapon was, it was still an external object. You can't always rely on it. Qin Feiyang took a few deep breaths, regained his composure, gritted his teeth, and stood up again. His whole person was like a violent beast. As his strength continued to increase, the muscles all over his body swelled up. This was an invisible confrontation. A confrontation between will and gravity. Roar! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang let out a beast-like roar. The skin all over his body cracked inch by inch. Blood flowed down. In a few blinks of an eye, he was like a bloody man. Under the pressure of gravity, his pain was clearer and stronger than usual. The pain of skin tearing was nothing at all, because it was just a small injury. But now, he felt like he was being torn into pieces. The pain was unbearable. However, in this regard he did not compromise. Gritting his teeth, his eyes were red. The power in his body was like a raging wave. His hands had already sunk into the ground. Once again, with a roar, the power in his body was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. In an instant he stood up. But because of this, the cracks on his skin were almost all over his body. Blood flowed freely. It was a shocking sight. Amazing. Yin Zhongtian and the black-bearded old man looked at this scene and could not help but reveal a look of admiration. Under such circumstances, To be able to stand up, his willpower was really terrifying. However, although Qin Feiyang succeeded in standing up, the gravity was still there, constantly pressing down on him. His legs were trembling, his blood vessels were bursting, gradually sinking into the ground. His whole body was like a fallen leaf in the wind, swaying. I can't fall. Qin Feiyang's eyes were stubborn, because he did not have the confidence to stand up again after falling down. But, no matter how he thought, the strength of the gravity did not weaken at all. He felt that he had really reached his limit. Blood flowed all over his body. The pain was so heart-wrenching that even his consciousness was dissipating. Brother Qin, don't force yourself. Yin Zhongtian could not bear it and softly advised. To be able to reach this step, it was already admirable and enough to prove himself, so there was no need to continue tormenting himself like this. Now is indeed a chance to train, because this gravity can help me break through my limits. Qin Feiyang whispered, even speaking was difficult. As his voice fell, he lifted his left foot and took a step forward. The distance between this step was very small, only 3 or 4 centimeters. But it was just this small step. He felt as if it had consumed all the strength in his body. His whole body swayed and fell to the ground. I must not fall. Qin Feiyang roared in his heart. Exerting strength in his feet, he stabilized his swaying body. Once again, he lifted his right foot with great difficulty and took another step forward. The distance was still only a few centimeters. It was like a turtle crawling. Seeing this, Yin Zhongtian no longer tried to dissuade Qin Feiyang. Instead, he took out a large number of divine life pellets. Every time Qin Feiyang took a step forward, he would feed Qin Feiyang a divine life pellet. But even so, it only served as a buffer. Time flew by. Half an hour passed. That's right. Qin Feiyang took one step at a time, and had already persisted for half an hour. But in this half an hour, he had only walked a dozen or so meters. Half an hour, only a dozen or so meters. One could only imagine how he had managed to get through this half an hour. Even Yin Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others felt that every minute and every second felt like a year. So, it was no exaggeration to say that for Qin Feiyang at this moment, every second felt like a century. The exhaustion and pain brought about by his body and mind made him not know how many times he had thought of giving up. With the help of the sovereign divine weapon, why should he risk his life? But every time, he would decisively wipe away such thoughts and grit his teeth and persevere. If he relied on the sovereign divine weapon for everything, then what difference would he be from the princes and princesses of the dragons? He did not want to become a flower in a greenhouse. Pressure and despair in the eyes of others was a mountain that they did not have the courage to cross. But in their eyes he was their motivation. In the past, this old man could not figure out how this child could have such achievements at such a young age. Now that I have seen this scene with my own eyes, this old man has suddenly realized that his achievements today are not by luck. The black-bearded old man looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed, his eyes full of praise and admiration. Yes, the others nodded in agreement. In the face of such powerful gravity, not to mention the young people, even the older generation had long given up. But this child, from the beginning to the end, had never said the word give up. Such perseverance and willpower was really unparalleled, because the current Qin Feiyang was already quite weak, and was completely relying on his perseverance and willpower to move forward against the wind. Woo-woo! Suddenly, there was the roar of a gust of wind in front. Not good. Yin Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others, when they heard the wind, their faces changed. What? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Yin Zhongtian said in a deep voice. In the heavy region, especially the central region, the most feared thing is encountering a storm because our movements are restricted by gravity, and it is very difficult to avoid the attack of the storm. That's right. The storm in the central region can kill living beings below the sovereign realm in an instant. Although our cultivation is at the sovereign realm, under such circumstances, it is very difficult to stand firm. If we are swept away by the storm, it is basically a dead end. So, as long as we encounter a storm, no matter who it is, we will immediately run for our lives. the black-bearded old man said, his face extremely solemn. The situation was already very bad, and now that there was a storm, it was really one disaster after another. So scary? The white-eyed wolf was shocked and urged, "Then what are we hesitating for? Hurry up and run for our lives." Yin Zhongtian and the black-bearded old man looked at each other and immediately took action. A few of them dragged the white-eyed wolf, and a few pulled Qin Feiyang and ran to the left. Rather than calling it running, it was better to call it walking, because under the current gravity, they could not run, and every step was extremely strenuous. Woo-woo! The storm was getting closer and closer, and black sand flew all over the sky, covering all directions. What the hell? When Yin Zhongtian saw the storm, he could not help but roar. The range of the storm was hundreds of kilometers, and with their current speed, there was no way they could escape to a safe area before the storm arrived. This is already a medium-sized storm. We are really unlucky. The black-bearded old man and the others' faces were also pale. Normally, a medium-scale storm like this would be hard to come by in 100 years in the heavy region. However, today they had bumped into it. Perhaps they didn't choose a good day before they left. Chapter 35:28. Then what should we do? The white-eyed wolf cried out. Yin Zhongtian stared at the approaching storm, and then looked at the black-bearded old man and the others before he said solemnly, "There's no point in running away now. Let's hold hands and form a circle, protecting Qin Feiyang and the Wolf King in the middle." All right. The 12 of them nodded and let go of the white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang. Then they quickly spread out, holding hands and surrounding Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. "Why aren't you activating the power of laws?" The white-eyed wolf frowned. Although the power of laws couldn't block gravity, it could block the storm. The storm's lethality was only at the level of a small success sovereign, because Yin Zhongtian and the others had said that the storm could instantly kill creatures below the large success sovereign realm. Its lethality was naturally at the small success sovereign realm. With the cultivation of Yin Zhongtian and the others, wouldn't it be easy for them to activate the power of laws to block the storm? Yin Zhongtian sighed. "We want to, but activating the power of laws is useless." "What?" The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "Useless?" "That's right. This storm is just like gravity, it can ignore everything. So even if you activate a barrier, the storm will still enter the barrier." Yin Zhongtian said. "No way." The white-eyed wolf lay on the ground, the corner of its mouth twitching. No wonder these people looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw the storm. It was the same as gravity. Without anyone to help it, it could only lie on the ground, unable to stand up. Moreover, its cultivation was lower than Qin Feiyang, so its situation was worse than Qin Feiyang's. "Little Qin Zi, you're this big brother's thigh. You have to hold on." The white-eyed wolf struggled to crawl to Qin Feiyang's feet, its claws firmly hugging Qin Feiyang's thigh. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang's face couldn't help but darken. He couldn't even protect himself, yet it was still hugging him? Was he really planning to die on the same day, on the same month, on the same year? But now, there was no other way. If they did not work together, it might really be difficult to get through this hurdle. Woo-woo. The storm howled, and the sound of the wind was ear-piercing. 50 kilometers, 90 kilometers, 80 kilometers. Seeing that the storm was getting closer and closer, everyone was extremely nervous. Boom! Finally, a storm swept over. "Hold on tight, don't get swept away," Yin Zhongtian roared. In an instant, the group of people was engulfed by the storm. The originally soft sand was now like steel balls, crazily hitting their bodies. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang's bodies immediately split open. Yin Zhongtian and the others were in an extremely bad situation as well. His clothes were ragged and swaying, as if he would be blown away at any moment. "Fuck!" The white-eyed wolf cursed angrily. Its entire body was blown up and suspended in the air. Its front pair of claws were tightly hugging Qin Feiyang's thighs. Regarding this, Qin Feiyang was having a headache. He was already unable to withstand it, and with the white-eyed wolf's actions, the pressure was even greater. His body swayed in the raging wind, and although his thighs had sunk into the sand, he was still forced to retreat. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang lost his balance, and his entire body flew up. Together with the white-eyed wolf, they crashed into the black-bearded old man behind them. This collision caused a chain reaction. The black-bearded old man also staggered and fell backwards. Yun Zhongtian and the other 11 people were also forced to retreat. Steady! Yun Zhongtian roared and stomped his feet. Apart from his head, his entire body sunk into the ground. He held on tightly to the hands of the two burly men beside him, and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, shouting, "You must catch him!" Because when they crashed into the black-bearded old man, Qin Feiyang grabbed the old man's arm in a moment of desperation. So now he was grabbing the black-bearded old man, while the white-eyed wolf was holding on to his thigh. One man and one wolf were blown up by the raging wind, swinging in the air. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang felt a tearing pain coming from his thigh. Turning back to look, he was instantly enraged and roared, "Damn wolf cub, what are you doing?" The white-eyed wolf seemed to be unable to hold on and bit Qin Feiyang's thigh. Its sharp fangs tore through the flesh and stuck on Qin Feiyang's thigh bone. "What are you being so fierce for? I haven't even complained about your smelly feet yet." The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Now it could not speak, and could only transmit its voice. Qin Feiyang's face was dark and his veins were popping. How could there be such a shameless bastard? About 10 breaths passed. The storm finally left. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang smashed directly to the ground. Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others were also lying on the ground, panting heavily. Everyone's face was filled with fear. Fortunately, the storm passed quickly, otherwise it would have been disastrous. The white-eyed wolf lay there powerlessly, muttering, "It's too scary. I don't want to go to the inner area." Not only was there gravity, but there was also a storm. The most important thing was that even the power of the laws could not resist it. How could they play? Qin Feiyang looked at his bloody thigh and glared fiercely at the white-eyed wolf. He swallowed a divine life pill and prepared to get up. But now, he was even more tired. The strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out, and it was difficult for him to even move. "Don't force yourself, retreat," the white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and raised his head with difficulty, looking at the desert ahead. Although the Yin demon land not only had the power of the Yin demons, but there were also fierce beasts that were not afraid of the Yin demon power. But in comparison, the heavy region was more terrifying. "Brother Qin, why don't we withdraw from the central region first and recuperate for a while before coming back?" Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang, and also had the thought of retreating. If he had not experienced the storm, it would have been fine, but now, his condition was also extremely bad. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian, and then looked at the exhausted black-bearded old man and the others. He nodded and said, "All right, let's go to the border region to recuperate." Hearing that, Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others got up and walked in front of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, intending to help them up. Woo-woo. But at this time, in the depths of the front, there was another ear-piercing sound of the wind. Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others looked at each other. Was this an illusion? It must be. Otherwise, how could they hear the wind again? However, the sound of the wind was getting more and more ear-piercing. Gusts of wind rolled up the black sand that filled the sky, rolling in from the depths. "Damn you!" Looking at this scene, even an old senior like Yun Zhongtian could not help but curse. The black-bearded old man and the others were the same. Their faces were ashen, and they all wanted to curse. There was a storm just now, and now there was another storm. Did they not let them breathe? Damn it! This is a large-scale storm. Suddenly, one of the burly men roared. "What?" Yun Zhongtian and the others looked over, and their faces suddenly turned pale. The storm that was surging over swept thousands of kilometers. It was simply a catastrophe. The white-eyed wolf was in despair. Qin Feiyang was also powerless to speak. It seemed that they really did not choose the right day, and today was destined to be an unlucky day. "Quick! Take the divine life elixir and resist the storm." Yun Zhongtian came back to his senses, and quickly took out dozens of divine life elixirs and roared. These divine life elixirs all had 7 dragon-shaped elixir chi. For someone of Yun Zhongtian's level and status, it was not strange for him to have 7 dragon-shaped elixir chi. When the black-bearded old man and the others heard this, they immediately stepped forward. Each took 2 divine life elixirs and stuffed them into their mouths. At this point, it was useless to complain, so they could only bite the bullet. Same old rules. Brother Qin, Brother Wolf King, you must hold on. Yun Zhongtian shouted. More than a dozen people immediately held hands and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He did not even have the strength to stand up now. How could he face this storm? One must know, this was a large-scale storm that was more terrifying than before. In the blink of an eye, the storm swept over mercilessly with dust and sand. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were immediately blown away. Damn you! The white-eyed wolf roared. How could it and Qin Feiyang withstand the storm in their current state? Yun Zhongtian's face changed as well, and in the nick of time, he bit down on the white-eyed wolf's tail. Little Yin, what are you doing? The white-eyed wolf cried out in pain. Cut the crap and bite Qin Feiyang's arm. Yun Zhongtian shouted. Both his hands were grabbing onto others, and he could not let go. So he could only bite down on the white-eyed wolf's tail to prevent it from being blown away. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang, who flew past it, and immediately opened its bloody mouth, biting down on Qin Feiyang's arm. Pieces of flesh were torn off, and the intense pain caused Qin Feiyang to tremble. He opened his eyes and looked around, his face darkening slightly. He and the white-eyed wolf were both floating in the void like a rope, swaying constantly. Not only were they unable to help Yun Zhongtian and the others, they had become a burden. Yun Zhongtian and the others were also in imminent danger. All of them were standing on a small boat in the midst of a raging storm. Elder Yin, I can't hold on any longer. A big man in black robes shouted anxiously. You have to hold on. Yun Zhongtian shouted. The big man in black's body had already become a bloody mess under the beating of the sand, and a trace of despair crept into his eyes. The others were the same. If they could not hold on, they would be swept away by the storm. When that happened, they would be ravaged by the storm. Even if they were full-cycle dominators, they would be crushed by the sand and the storm sooner or later. In short, as long as they were hit by the storm, it would be a situation of 9 deaths and 1 life. We can't fall, or we will all die. Even under the double attack of gravity and the storm, Qin Feiyang did not give in. I will definitely break the limit, he roared in his heart, and his powerless hands slowly clenched into fists. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's body and the white-eyed wolf's body had already become a bloody mess under the ravaging of the storm and gravity, and even their bones could be seen clearly. I can do it. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists fiercely and roared into the sky. His flesh exploded and dyed the sky red. Boom! It was also at this moment that loud rumbling sounds exploded within Qin Feiyang's body, like the roar of thunder, like the rolling of a chariot, as if a mysterious door had been forcefully broken open and was slowly opening. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.